We'll go ahead and just we'll let everybody start introducing themselves, and we'll get this ball rolling. This is the American Octagon, okay? And I hope you're all ready to have fun tonight, okay? We'll go ahead and just start left, top left to bottom right. We'll just go with FL Scott.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I am Scott from Fabian Liberty. Um, we are a anarcho-capitalist duo stream. Do a lot of debates these days, but also do news reactions. Typical stuff. We don't usually react to other streamers or anything. So if you come and watch us, you're usually going to have to fill me in on what the Twitch drama is because I do my best to stay out of it. We do some philosophy readings from time to time, and some occasional nights where we get drunk and go over memes. Um, That'll be it.
All right, sweet. Go ahead, Ty.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Tiberius D. I study in economics, political science, and my claim to fame is knowing a little bit about geopolitics. I'll be using that for all of one topic tonight, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens for rounds 1 and 2. But I can't wait. So thank you for having me on the on the American Octagon for my inaugural presentation. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. All right, and CTV. Go ahead, brother.
I have no idea what the topics are. I never got a group invite, right? I pretty much just sent Sprout a message that says, "Hey, bro, I'm showing up," and then next thing you know, I'm here, right? So I am critically thinking veteran, the people's champion of the Hippy Dippy podcast, right? The conservative main boss, right? And I do definitely facilitate conservative community, whether I want to or not, it seems, here in Twitch politics, right? So if you are conservative leaning and you find yourself hearing my voice at this moment, you should probably head over this way and find out what we got going on. And yeah, I'm showing people that you can have calm, rational conversations in one place and be a complete character while still being philosophically consistent with your takes. And I feel like that's been one of the great things that I've been able to bring here to the platform. And I'm looking forward to a calm and rational talk with these fine men. Although, I'm going to be frank again, I have no fucking idea what the rules are here in the Octagon, right? So, here we fucking go. And take it away.
All right, go ahead and Dylan play.
All right, well, I'm filling in on short notice, much to the dismay of Scott. Sorry, Scott. Yeah, I'm Dylan. I'm a neo-Marxist revisionist, so I basically just talk on Marxism. I have my own YouTube channel. You can go find me there. You can find me on Spotify at Dylan Blay. Make some music here and there. I like to come and give my piece on panels, whether people want me to or not. So I'm here and I'm ready to have a good time. And with that, I guess Xanderhal, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Xanderhal. I make political content online on Twitch and YouTube, most notably, and I mostly lean pretty far left on most stuff. I typically call myself a sock dem when it comes to labels because I do focus more on like pragmatic stuff more so than like crazy, like, okay, let's get socialism or communism now kind of stuff. Yeah, you find me on YouTube, Twitch, whatever. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, sir. And absolute last but not least, Chud Logic. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Sorry, I'm having some technical problems. I'm on an old laptop tonight, so I'm a bit still. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm Chud Logic. I'm a Marxoid streamer. I talk about politics, drama, Twitch politics, meta, shit like that. We have a good time. We have some memes. We have some creams. Yeah, basically, you probably heard about me from some of my dramas, maybe being a racist or being a groomer. So if you like racist groomers, come and check out my stream and you'll find everything you've ever been looking for.
Shedlock
Awesome.
is such a disgusting person. He groomed a 30-year-old.
Shit, we're off to a great start.
Oh, no.
All right, so I will go over the rules real quick as well. This is a debate panel. There will be 3 topics each. We'll have about 45-minute discussion for each with 7 to 8 minutes for all of your openings and closers, respectively. Interrupting is allowed, but try not to go overboard with it. I'm not here to babysit. This is the Octagon, so, I'll only interject if nobody can hear anything. The last time you can mention a topic is in the opener of the next topic. We have a mechanic called the cage match. Okay, each panelist has one opportunity to call a cage match, and when a cage match is called, the challenger and the challengee will have 5 minutes to talk, and only they will be allowed to speak. During this time, everything goes that is in TOS. Following the cage match, both of the challengers or both of the participants in the cage match will be muted for 3 minutes, and the rest of the panelists will get in the mix. I also have the ability to call cage matches throughout the evening. And then during the cage match, we have the Stardust rule. If you decide to yell over the other person for the entire time, at 4 minutes, you'll be muted and the other guest will get the rebuttal. If this happens, the person who was yelled at will not be muted following the cage match.
Oh yeah, that happened
I'm
last
American
time I
Nacho,
was
I'm your
here.
host. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to use the Stardust rule sometimes. So,
yeah, that happened
thanks
last.
to
It was crazy, actually.
Yeah, when you rattle off the Constitution, and don't actually speak to your opponent, you might get Stardust ruled. I just hate to
What?
say that's the way she goes.
And if you decide to start saying things that are just not factually true, you can expect me to speak the truth.
Okay.
Factually accurate if you want to be grammatically correct.
Oh my God. I'm in 8th grade again, boys. Let's just go with it.
Okay.
Wow! Right off from the start,
All
we
right.
got the grammar.
didn't know-
What? The
I didn't
grammar
know
what?
Marxist.
Grammar
Okay,
Nazi.
hold on a minute. Let's not get out of here right at
Nazi.
the beginning. Let's
Yep.
go
I'll play
for the
grammar.
first topic.
I'll play
Okay.
grammar.
So the first topic is a kind of I kind of tried to make a combination of these two. The idea being that how much in the Travis Scott situation where these people started like mobbing at his concert and people were trampled and people died and people were sent to the hospital. And also in Alec Baldwin's case, he shot somebody on set. He's an executive producer on this movie. Basically, how much are these individuals like respectively at fault for what happened, and what kind of things do you think we could do to change these? I mean, people have talked about in the Alec Baldwin case, maybe there needs to be some kind of like standard or movie film standard or some kind of state regulation, etc. And in the Travis Scott case, I haven't heard anybody mention any kind of regulations, but they've pointed to the fact that other artists maybe conduct themselves and try to keep the crowd in check, etc. So those things in mind. I'll go ahead and start. We'll start with Chud Logic since he went last on the introduction.
Hey, if there's a group or someone could like type that into a group chat somewhere where I could see what the question is, I'd appreciate it. And my cat snuck out of the house and was waiting on me at the front step. That's how great of a relationship that we have. You hear
All
me?
right, Chud. Thanks for your introduction.
No.
It's
Come on,
your,
CTV.
opening.
You've already started talking over me. I've only been here 5 minutes. What's going on, mate? Huh? Anyway,
It's only because you're so still tonight, and I'm not sure if you're actually there.
I am sorry. Listen, I'm having technical problems. Okay,
He's
It is
terrified
what
of
it
your
is.
muscular frame. Okay,
But
it's
don't worry,
intimidating.
my voice will come through. It's all good. Okay, so I think this is a really interesting comparison, and I think when you look at it on the face of it, there probably are some similarities. I think that in reality, people want to have an individual to point to go, it's this person's fault, and I think that's the case in both the Travis Scott and the Alec Baldwin case. I think that in reality, there are probably issues outside of an individual that affect this. So in the Travis Scott case, there's probably some sort of like desire for profit and getting as many people packed into an arena as possible, which creates incentives, which leads to people getting packed in, maybe in excess to what's able to get in there. In the Alec Baldwin case, I think that there's obviously some sort of issue in the movie industry where there's an insistence on using certain like live guns and stuff like that, maybe due to a cost issue. The one thing I would say is these two cases are obviously horrific, but they are quite limited. If you look at like events or you look at like the movie industry, it's quite rare that you get these crushes or these shootings. So I think a lot of attention gets paid to it. There probably is some regulation somewhere you could put in to fix these issues. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of focus on the individual, and maybe there should be more of a focus on the outside external factors that lead to these circumstances coming about in the first place, and that's it.
Okay, how about we go to Fabian Liberty?
Yeah, so I mean, for the most part, I'll agree with Chud Logic. Like, I do think that there is an overemphasis on the individuals here. That being said, I do think that the police departments like Houston PD and You know, I can't remember exactly where Alec Baldwin was, which in what jurisdiction from the police department. They do need to conduct an investigation and see whether or not these people are responsible for negligent homicide. Because I mean, one could argue, depending on how the facts are laid out, we don't know all of the facts. We don't know to what degree was it Travis Scott's label? Was it Astro World? Like, who's responsible for how the venue was set up in situations like that? And the same thing, like, how much culpability does Alec Baldwin have in terms of, you know, whether or not he hired, like, whom he hired on set? Because it's my understanding that he was in charge of a lot of these things. And again, like, I think investigations need to be done. Criminal negligence doesn't require mens rea, right? So you don't have to have like this state of intending to commit a crime in order to be charged with criminal negligence. You just need to have a responsibility that you didn't meet. However, it is a fairly large bar or a fairly large threshold in order to charge someone with criminal negligence. And when it leads to the death of someone, negligent homicide, and so I think, you know, we do need to be careful. We do need to, like, maybe not like go to Twitter and start canceling people or start making fun of Travis Scott because he had the worst apology video we've seen in years. And instead just kind of, you know, let the investigators do their job. And if it doesn't seem like they're doing their job, you know, then maybe put pressure on the detectives involved, to kind of investigate these matters more thoroughly.
My mic is unplugged somehow. What did
You're
you
good.
do?
I can hear you.
Okay. My dog was messing around down here. Okay, sorry about that. Go ahead, Ty.
I apologize that I didn't get a chance to really research the Travis Scott thing. Number one, I'm a normie and I had a job, so I just didn't get time. And I thought I'd have time before I got here, and I literally just walked in the door and fired up everything. When it comes to Alec Baldwin, I just think it was an accident. I'm not like super familiar with the movie industry, but from what I understand, they have a lot of precautions to keep this kind of thing from happening. As far as I'm aware, it's really rare, right? Like the last time that I remember hearing about something was literally Brandon Lee. Um, I'll just put it this way. I feel that it's obviously a tragedy, but in the reality of things is that this is probably an accident. I'm sure 100,000 people feel bad about it, and they're combing over what they could have done better. But I'm not going to pull out the witch hunt for this one. And then I can't speak to Travis Scott. So that's just my opening on that one.
Okay. Xanderhal.
Yeah, so it's pretty clear Travis Scott is a literal demon who sacrificed his fans to the Dark Lord in order to sustain his life force and continue his endless immortality as long as he continues to sacrifice his fans for the time being. In all seriousness, though, there are people who actually believe that. I've covered like videos talking about the Travis Scott's thing, saying that he's a demon and he was making a satanic sacrifice. Very funny shit. As for the Travis Scott thing, there. Travis Scott just seems like kind of a piece of shit when it comes to the well-being of his fans. Hasn't he been arrested like twice for inciting riots at his events, like telling people, "Hey, we're sold out on tickets, but come on over. We're still letting the wild ones in." I'm pretty sure he said exactly that. So, fuck him on that, because that was absolutely negligence on his part that resulted in the deaths of so many of his fans and the injuries of many others. Negligence on his part, and there was also, I think, the fact that there were people getting up on stage screaming someone's dead while he's performing, and still nothing happens for like another 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something. And as for the Alec Baldwin thing, I think that was a simple case of an accident. I'm not a big fan of the fact that a prop gun was pointed at anybody. I understand it's a movie set, but I don't know. Like, I grew up in southern Florida, or like central Florida on the West Coast towards the south, and I have, used guns before. My uncles taught me how to use guns, and like, it was just a thing. You don't even point like fake toy guns at people when you know how to use guns, because it's just, you don't make a habit out of that. You never barrel sweep people. You don't point. Every gun ought to be considered loaded and lethal. You don't even point the trigger, like put your finger on the trigger unless you intend to shoot something. I know that using live ammo isn't completely out of the question when it comes to televised productions or movie productions, but this is an example of like terrible gun etiquette in all forms. Even gun etiquette for fake prop guns, it was bad etiquette for this to occur. Do I think Alec Baldwin's a murderer or he's anywhere near as bad as Travis Scott? No, but I think Travis Scott is a piece of shit for that whole situation.
All right. And last but not least, Dylan Blake. Go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah. So when you look at these two things here, the Alec
You got
Baldwin
one more after me,
I
asshole.
know,
Just to
I
be clear.
realized. Okay, I realized it. Okay.
Yeah, asshole. Okay.
Okay.
my face when my opening statement.
He was
gets
talking to
interrupted.
Dylan, not me. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So basically, my take on this is that we have to really separate the two incidents in terms of fault, and I'm not really sure why they come in as like a package deal. Maybe just because of the relative, time frame in which they happened in. But to me, the criminal negligence of someone like Travis Scott versus the sheer type of accident that happened with Alec Baldwin. And while I will agree with Xander that it's incredibly bad gun etiquette for anyone who is, grew up anywhere where they hunt, they shoot, whatever. You don't really point guns at people. Your parents probably told you not to point guns at people, things of that nature. That obviously leads to really bad accidents like this. But at the end of the day, I see this as mostly just a really, really tragic accident that happened in terms of what happened on that set there. With Travis Scott, on the other hand, though, that is wildly negligent. Over 50,000 people attended the Astro Fest or Astro World Fest or whatever the hell it was called. Don't really care. Not a Travis Scott fan. But when you look at the sheer level of like poor planning and negligence that goes into a situation like that for almost is it 10 people now to have died at one event, and then someone to be on stage and just continue performing amidst all the chaos, it's really pathetic on Travis's part, and it's absolutely justified that these fans are suing. It's irresponsible on his brand, on his companies that represent him, and in all aspects, they should absolutely be paying. And I think, there were lives of young children that were lost during this too, like young children expecting to go to Travis Scott's festival and have a good time, and surely they didn't get to live through that, which I think is a tragedy, and their family should be fairly compensated.
All right, and now, last but not least, Mr. Critically Thinking Veteran. Go ahead, brother. Take it away.
I like it when my name gets said all the way. It shows manner of respect. I like that. Now, let's look at the facts here, folks. Right? Travis Scott, an entertainer, right, was encouraging fans after they had already broken through the fucking barricades to keep fucking running in and pack that motherfucker so full that when the party actually got started, and I don't know the facts of the case well enough to know how many people died, but I know there was quite a few that got injured and there was a few that got killed as a result, right, of his stupidity. Now, it's obvious to see that clearly that there's a role for the local government to play when it comes to something as basic as a fucking fire code, right, for how many people are allowed at a fucking event, right, and to be trying to grab hold of the fucking situation. This is where like a simple phone call from Travis Scott himself to the fucking government might have been able to help mitigate the situation, but no, this asshole wanted to just keep agging people fucking on. And of course, when you egg people on, what are they going to do? They're going to act a fucking fool. Why? Because you know what? Groups of people are fucking morons. Individuals can be rationalized with, but groups of people are fucking morons, right? So all he really did was end up getting people fucking killed. I hope he's held to the fullest extent of the letter of the law, and everyone else can learn from that situation. Now, Alec fucking Baldwin. Give me a fucking break. Are you all right? You hear me? Give me a fucking break. This guy needs to be in fucking jail, right?
CTV, the puppy
Gun
princess
safety,
that thinks he's
right?
a wolf.
And for those of you that watch the Hippy Dippy Rumble, you all understand that my firearm is right here on my fucking desk, and every single fucking time you see me pick it up, what is my index finger reaching for? The motherfucking slide release. You know what this reminds me of? The Kyle Rittenhouse prosecutor who decided to pick up an AR-15 and point it at the fucking jury with his finger on the trigger. Now, come on, folks. This is basic fucking firearm safety, right? Basic. Basic fucking shit. And you know what? We're going to do this right here for everybody just so you understand right from the start. The very first thing that you need to know as soon as you pick up a firearm is what the condition of that firearm is. Right now, this weapon is in condition 4, right? Now, I can take this magazine right here, right? Magazine, right? Firearm, no round in it, right? I insert first off, we'll release the slide. No round in the chamber, right? We load up the magazine. Guess what? This weapon is condition 3, right? Condition 3 weapon. As soon as I rack that back and I put a round in the chamber, it is now condition 1, meaning that there's a round in the chamber with the safety on, right? Magazine inserted. Condition 1 weapon. Somebody decides to come through my front door tonight without having my permission to do so. Guess what? They're going to leave with a whole lot more holes than what they came in with, right? That's just how this shit works. Alec Baldwin, you're absolute. I don't give a fuck how many safety protocols that the industry had in fucking place. The individual is responsible for knowing the condition of the weapon when they fucking pick it up. It's not that fucking hard. I just ran through it in less than a fucking minute here on a Twitch panel, right? And that's some training that your ass would have benefited from, and not only your ass, which needs to be in fucking jail, but the person that you fucking killed because you're a fucking idiot.
All right. So hopefully nobody breaks into CTV's house tonight. That would be awful. Probably for both parties. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Open the floor.
Right, CTV, you're a fucking idiot. And I'll tell you why you're an idiot, okay?
Well, I'm going to wait for this long, explanatory, lefty answer. I'm sure at the end of it, it's going to be you being what it is that you're calling me. But go ahead, Chad.
No, listen, it's not a fucking lefty answer. It's really simple, okay? Yes, I appreciate there's the 4 rules of gun safety. Listen, I'm not into guns, okay? I'm secure on masculinity, so I don't need to worry about that.
British.
I'm British. Anyway, listen, here's the thing. The standards on movie sets are different to the standards you would have on a gun range. Now, you're absolutely right in terms of you follow the safety rules on a gun range so no one gets shot, okay? Now, on a movie set, rather than have the actor be responsible for the weapon, you put that responsibility on the people around them. It's the armourer, I believe, and the prop master secondary to that, and they have responsibility for gun safety. Because at the end of the day, the actor may not really have any particular insight into a gun, right? And their job is to act. So they are handed weapons, they're given weapons, they are told the status of the weapons so that they don't have to worry about the gun safety aspect, okay? Now, in this case, the protocol wasn't followed. I agree that maybe Alec Baldwin has some responsibility from a producer, perhaps, that perspective. But in terms of his individual responsibility for shooting that weapon and killing someone, to suggest that he's, like, responsible for that because he didn't follow gun safety is ludicrous and stupid.
Yeah, but I'd have to fundamentally disagree with you at the point of you are operating a piece of technology that frankly is rudimentary, right, in its fucking manufacture. It's rudimentary, right? This technology has been around for at least, right, a couple of 100 years in the standard forms that we have today, and even older forms as you go back into history. So, like, someone in the 21st century trying to give me some bullshit fucking argument about an actor picking up a weapon, right, and then not understanding the bullet, right, which is right here, I'm showing everybody, right, is this one happens to be a jacketed hollow point, right? The type of round that would actually leave the end of the type of round that would leave the end of the barrel of the weapon and enter the body of someone else, the same as a full metal jacket. That would be an example of the same kind of fucking round. Now, this thing happened to be loaded with something else, right? It wasn't just a blank, right? Because if it was,
I'm going to throw you a bone.
Throw me a bone.
The prop master and the armor are actually required by regulation to teach the actor how to clear and check the weapon and how to ensure that the weapon is loaded with blanks and not loaded with live ammunition.
So hold on,
actually,
so hold on right there. After what you said, right? So there's the bone, right? So then, at a minimum, right, if Alec Baldwin had not been given the kind of training that he was supposed to have been given before picking up the weapon, then he, as an actor, should have known that he should not be picking up the weapon without receiving such training. Now, onto your comments
how long is this going to last? Because I haven't got all night.
Oh, you definitely got all night for me because let's be honest, I'm a man of stamina, right? So, like, back to your comments about.
Okay, keep going then. Keep filibustering. Let's go.
The CTV.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Go ahead, CTV. Go ahead.
Right. So, like, back to your comments about guns and masculinity and you being British, right? Let's be honest here for a minute. Anytime that y'all fuckers need some guns, who are you looking over your shoulder to see who's standing there, right? That'd be right. The good old red, white, and blue talking about, hey, the Germans are coming, y'all. We need some help. And we're like, you know what? We'll send some supplies, and then when finally the Japanese come over, we'll come over and fuck everybody up because, you know, we're known for that shit. But I hear you about the trying to tie that security and masculinity together. I think that's just more of what I said to begin with, which was what? A lefty talking point.
Okay. Well done, mate.
Wait, do you
go on,
mind,
no, go on, Xanderhal. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah.
Scallops and leaves.
So honestly, yeah, I mean, this is more so for the whole stream and everybody else here, more so than just CTV. But I mostly agree with CTV actually, probably because me and CTV are probably closer in regards to how much we like have been around guns. Although he's probably been around it more. And that yeah, it's really hard to make excuses for Alec Baldwin when like. Even when handling prop guns, most definitely when you've also handled real live ammo guns on set for shooting, the idea of pointing a prop gun in the direction of somebody and pulling the trigger, to have the line of events that occur for that gun to have been pointed at somebody, shot, and then to hurt them, like the fact that he even went as far as pointing what he thought to be a prop gun at somebody, put his finger on the trigger and pulled, presumably, like even that is ridiculous.
I don't think this is quite how it went down, though. That's the problem.
So how did it go down then? Because I'm not
okay. No, that's fine.
Scenario that occurred.
So basically, the assistant director handed Alec Baldwin the gun and said cold gun. Now, in the terms of a movie set, when someone tells you it's a cold gun, it's supposed to be that that's already been checked, okay? And it is a cold gun. It can't possibly fire. It's basically impossible for that gun to fire, right? So if Alec Baldwin's predictive, he's got a cold gun, and what you're saying, he was showing how he was going to pull the gun out of the holster from the shot, and it discharged. Now, as to whether he pulled the trigger, I don't know that exact detail. My understanding of it is that it went off. I don't know the situation how it went off, but yeah, in any case, the thing was triggered, it went off and shot someone. So I don't know if the narrative is quite true that he pulled it out and pointed it at someone and pulled the trigger. But even with that being said, he was told it was a cold gun.
See, I think this debate is kind of a little bit going in the wrong direction in terms of, at least from a legal perspective, right? Because I mean, I kind of understand both sides here in approximating, like, look, Alec Baldwin believed, because the person that he hired to do this, right, that the weapon was no longer dangerous, right? And like, if you've been around guns or you understand gun culture, obviously you know that you don't ever fucking flag someone. But you're talking about an anti-gun lefty Hollywood actor, right? He clearly doesn't know shit about guns. The situation here that really makes him culpable is not per se just the acts that occurred, but it's the fact that he wasn't responsible in hiring the appropriate people. He did not vet these people. They had budget cuts, and because of those budget cuts, they hired people that were not qualified to do this job. And it's his due diligence to make sure that the people that are hired on his set are know what they're doing, right? And so I'm not sure that it's necessarily his fault, right? Which is what I said in the beginning, right? Because I mean, you have a movie production company, just because he's the executive producer, you know, the buck stops here type of situation. He obviously has some culpability, but I'm sure he has people that he hired with him whose opinions he trusted that were shit opinions, right? And this is why I think, instead of jumping to conclusions, we kind of need to look at all of the evidence and say an investigator needs to go on. We need to figure out who it was that made the decision to hire people that were unqualified, right? Who was it that insisted that those things be done? Were they aware, right, that this person was unqualified, or was that an accident, right? Like, there's a lot of steps here in determining who's responsible for the negligence that occurred. Obviously, we kind of want to look at the character of the Baldwin, but what's more important is actually understanding where in the chain of events of safety protocols was the ultimate decision that really led to to the resulting failures later that led to someone dying, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I agree with the investigation. I think the issue is like righties have fucking got a hard on over going, like, not you necessarily, but other people certainly have. I mean, CTV was literally laughing about it, and they want to just pin it all on Alec Baldwin, and I totally agree. He may have some culpability as an executive producer. The only thing with that, and listen, I don't like Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's a fucking smug lib idiot. But I think that the problem is like how much responsibility did he have for the hiring? Was it other people that were producing that maybe took some of the responsibility too? So yeah, I just think this narrative of like Alec Baldwin is like the one at fault for this is totally stupid, and it's not rooted in any analysis of the facts. It's to do with people hate Alec Baldwin because he fucking insulted
but to
Trump.
be fair, right? But to be fair, to look at it from the flip side, right? Like we used to teach, like guns are a part of American culture. You can disagree with that and you can dislike that, right? You can say like, well, it shouldn't be that way or whatever you want, right? But we have more weapons, more firearms in this country than we have people. And it used to be that we taught people basic firearm safety in high school. We used to fire live guns, and then we switched to BB guns. That was a thing that we did in the 50s and 60s. And then in the 70s, people learned with BB guns. And the fact of the matter is that if we're going to have a society that is an armed population, I think it says something, and I think this is kind of what right-wingers are keying into, right, with a specific case and not really zooming out and looking at the overarching problem, which is that we have a large swath of the American public that lives and works around firearms but has no understanding of firearm safety. And I think that's a really, really big problem. And it's kind of brought to the media attention and exacerbated by an anti-gun lefty Hollywood actor killing somebody, most likely due to some level of negligence from that person, both from a lack of knowledge, but also possibly financial choices that they made that ultimately led to someone's death. And so I think both sides kind of have a point, but yeah, you're right. There's right wingers just being like, fuck Alec Baldwin, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of silly and memey, but we do have a problem here. And I think this really shows that problem.
I want to piggyback off of that a little bit, just because you took about half of what I was going to say right out of there. This is the problem that I have with like our political cultures, that we have like liberals and lefties and righties. You know, righties usually have their gun safety on point. Not saying exclusively, but they usually have it. The part where FLS is 100% right is that we divide it to where there is a side of the aisle that is very anti-gun, and they find it as kind of like barbaric. And I'm not trying to say that in a straw man way, but there is consequences for that action. Is that if you are living in a society with guns, particularly if you're going to be dealing with guns, you do have to practice with them. You have to be educated with them. Shout out to Keanu Reeves. That dude is a fucking master at using these goddamn things. But on the other hand, there are other people that really are completely out of their depth. And that's where I'm like, look, we can scream it out about Alec Baldwin all the live long day. He's an anti-gun guy. That's fine. He made a choice. And now he's paying for the consequences of that choice. And so I think if he has any kind of conscience at all, he's going to beat the shit out of himself. I don't have to do it for him.
Yeah, I want to add on to what Scott said as well really quickly, and sort of respond to something Chud Logic said a while ago. Chud Logic said that it was either I think it was the prop master and the armorer, I think are the terms for it, had given Alec Baldwin the gun and had said, this is a cold gun, it's fine, it's not going to fire, it can't fire, you're going to be okay. I mean, granted, Alec Baldwin is a ivory tower liberal coast actor and like doesn't know anything about guns, granted, but like CTV, you're listening, right? You can hear me?
Of course. I mean, there's a whole lot of shit that y'all have been saying that's been wrong all the fucking way, and I've been waiting patiently, but yeah, I'm listening. All
right, CTV. You have a gun right next to you. You know how that gun works. You know how to empty that gun properly, and know beyond a fact, beyond a fact, that there's not a single a shot in that gun to fire, right? Even if you knew that gun, beyond a reasonable doubt, was 100% empty, even if you emptied it right now, you still probably wouldn't take that gun pointed at your leg and pull the trigger, even though you know 100% it's empty, because you know it's improper gun safety. You know it's something you're just not supposed to do. It's been ingrained in your head from probably a very young age, depending on where you grew up, that it's just not something you do. No
Mountains of North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't point. There's no such thing as an unloaded gun. There's just
all firearms are loaded, always.
Yeah, I agree with Scott's statement that we need to just generally teach better firearm safety, especially here in America, where everybody is somewhere near a gun at all times. I'm probably within like 50 feet of a gun right now and don't even know.
I mean, sure, but like, you know, I thought it was the land of freedom. Part of that freedom is not wanting to be involved with guns at all, surely. So if people aren't interested, then that's fine, right? But then...
Well, you're allowed in America not to know how to drive. That doesn't mean that you can, like, walk across the street and be like, well, I want nothing to do with cars, so I'm not going to make sure that I look both ways before crossing the street.
Thank you, Xander.
Sure, but the thing is, I agree with you that like Alec Baldwin obviously was, you know, in some way using guns. Maybe there's better training or some legislation. I would point to the fact that it, you know, is like one aspect of, you know, in the film industry, it's not a very common occurrence that you have these accidents. So clearly they're doing something right, you know. The fact that this is
because they're following safety standards that Alec Baldwin been around.
Well, no, exactly. I agree.
Yeah,
sure, I agree with you. But my point is that like, you know, I don't know if it's required that the film industry needs, you know, any more focus on firearm safety. It seems like they're doing a pretty good job. It's just that it seems now we're talking more broadly about, you know, overall when it comes to guns. And yeah, I mean, whilst I appreciate, sure, if you want to be involved with guns, have more firearm safety. I think if people don't want to be, if you know, there's nothing wrong with being anti-gun. Like that's a totally fine, legitimate position to have. And if people want to have that, that's up to them. I don't think you can impose on them. No, you've got to fucking be involved with these guns because there's loads around. You know, I don't think it's a negative to be anti-gun.
Well, we're not saying that. What we're saying is at a bare fucking minimum, every single American should know deeply, treat all firearms as if they're loaded.
Yeah, I suppose
like
so, yeah,
that.
sure.
That in and of itself should just be a fucking thing that every American person, even children, should know that all firearms are loaded. Because there are tons of gun accidents.
If I pointed a squirt gun, a little orange plastic squirt gun at my parents, I got grounded when I was a kid. That was the punishment for doing that. That's how seriously, frankly, I think all people in America should be learning about guns. You don't do that kind of thing. I mean, squirt guns, obviously, they're made to shoot at your friends, but like, my family weren't okay with it. They got pissed at Nerf guns, squirt guns,
airsoft guns, paintball guns. There's a whole lot of fucking guns that are appropriate for shooting at other fucking people. But if you're picking up a gun, right, that is potentially loaded with a fucking blank or could hold a full metal jacket or could hold any other fucking like killing fucking round and your ass doesn't bother to check it to begin with, your ass needs to go to fucking jail. Period.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the clear thing is, if you want to be a gun owner, be a responsible gun owner. As a broad thing, yeah, sure. People need
no. If you want to handle firearms, period. There's none of this bullshit about trying to obfuscate the shit to ownership. Well, yeah. If you are handling the firearm, you need to be held responsible. The same as you would if you jumped in a fucking car and ran over a bunch of fucking people.
Wait a second. So a gun owner at the gun range, right, that is there to shoot a gun and do all that shit, right? I think that there's a different level of responsibility there to an actor that's just handling the gun on set for the purposes of a scene when there's structures in place that are supposed to mitigate the risk of them having the gun, right?
Well, so it's irrelevant. Shud logic. We're not even talking about like this case in particular. This is just an example of like, well, we don't know exactly what happened, but broadly speaking, clearly some mistake was made on set for this to have even occurred in the first place. So that's why we've gone to the discussion of broadly more informing people on how to safely use guns. But I mean, I had a friend who found a gun on a public playground when I was a kid. Like my best friend when I was a kid found a gun on a public playground. It was painted blue and black with like Spider-Man patterns with like a paintbrush, and it was like it was a Glock. It was just painted to look like a Spider-Man Glock, looked like a toy almost, the way he described it. But it was a real gun, and it was sent into the police. But we're in America. Children sometimes find guns around. It's a thing. It's a serious worry. In school, growing up in Florida, they told us, like our teachers were like, hey, you might find a gun one day. Here's what to do if you find a gun, because they're just around. You could just stumble across one at some point in your life. At least here in America, where we've got guns fucking everywhere, everybody needs to have been properly taught how to use them. The fact that there's no such thing as an unloaded gun. You never put your finger on the trigger unless you intend to kill someone. You never point a gun at anyone or anything unless you plan on killing it or shooting it. These are basic things that just need to be taught, like regardless. Anytime you're about to use a gun, the question should be, okay, I'm about to hand you something gun shaped, you know, whether it be a prop gun, a cold gun, as it said, or a loaded gun. You know the rules, right? Like recite them to me. That's what I would ask anybody before giving them a gun, 100% of the time.
I got two pieces here that I want to piggyback off. The first one here is that I kind of said this a little bit ago, but I respect your doctrine, Xanderhal. You got this, right? The problem is that not everyone has that, and I have to give some kind of accountability for that. That's why I've largely been on the defense for Alec. On the other side of that, though, is that I will 100% side with the rest of you in the regard that when it comes to the armor and the prop master, there is supposed to be like protocol after protocol after protocol for this. So I can't walk it away that somebody didn't fuck up. In fact, it was probably at least 3 fuck ups that got us to where we were at. So there's a point there where I'm just like, I have to give that side to you, is that I don't like the concept of original sin in any kind of regard where you have to walk back and everything after that is bad. But on the other side of that, this is not just one fuck up. It was another after another after another that stacks. And I have to give that. Like, if anyone's probably more fault here, it's probably the prop master or the firearms expert that was on scene.
Yeah, no,
I mean, look, right?
Sorry, go on. You speak. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. There's just a bunch of ways I'd like to look at this. I think Alec Baldwin has, of course, the personal responsibility aspect of this, but there's also some type of corporate responsibility that the production company has to face as a result of irresponsibly handling these firearms, having an irresponsible prop master dealing with weapons when they were cutting budgets, and dealing with people who were irresponsibly trained or not properly equipped to handle the situation. So I think there's multiple levels in which we have to hold people accountable in terms of this. But also, I mean, I still can't ignore the fact that when you're handed a gun, maybe as someone who was raised around guns growing up, right? Like we've all been adding to this conversation, you don't just point a gun. You never point a gun at someone. It's the complete opposite of what you should be doing, unless your intention is to shoot that person, which most of us do not intend to do or do not want to do. Although I will say, again, to play even more into this card, which I feel is necessary, in America, a country littered with guns, right? It's a mainstay part of the culture. Everyone's exposed to guns from a young age. We understand that it's part of the, you have a right to bear arms in America. CTV's pointing his gun at the camera again.
Bull fucking shit. Don't even try to say that I was pointing my gun at the fucking camera. All I'm doing is familiarizing, like you were saying, right? So make sure you say it, because if you point the barrel end of your gun at the camera, guess what, asshole? That's Twitch TOS. Right? Okay. And if you're a responsible fucking gun owner, guess what? You know these kinds of things.
There's a couple of things.
Sorry, CTV never barrel sweeps the chat.
There's a couple of things that I think are just information that everyone would benefit from, because it seems like not a lot of people like looked into it deeply, right? So the first thing is, when you say there's a corporate responsibility, Dylan, I agree. The thing is, though, is that Alec Baldwin was the executive producer on set.
Right.
Right.
Which is why I think he's involved with this culpability aspect.
Right.
Level. But corporations face different ramifications as the entities that they are, as opposed to an individual person when it comes to
I don't know, bro. Didn't you hear the Supreme Court? Corporations are people.
Well,
kidding. But
Oh my
Let's
God.
go. Baby, let's go.
But come on, man. Supreme Court. But anyways, no,
Yeah.
getting back to the other thing. So people walked off set prior to this occurring because of lackluster safety protocols, right? Like, people literally left the set saying that the safety protocols weren't being met. And on top of that, the people that were in charge of the gun safety, which is a different reason why other safety protocols weren't being in charge, were fired multiple times. And that's when a new person was brought in that had no idea what the fuck they were doing, and then tells the media that they put live ammunition in because they were afraid to put blanks in the gun. That's the person that's in charge of loading this firearm, was afraid to put blanks in the gun. This is her admission, right? Now, sounds like total bullshit cope, but I think it's important to understand that this isn't just a simple act of like, oh, someone accidentally picked up the wrong box, loaded the firearm, wasn't paying attention, and then said cold gun, you're good to go, right? Like, there's a reason why people are really upset here, because there was a lot of red flags before this scenario happened that safety standards were not being met, right? And Alec Baldwin shares some culpability with that, but also we need to do an investigation to see who else was making some of these decisions and to what level he was aware of these decisions on top of the personal responsibility. But it's not just like, oh, they hired one person that was unqualified. There was a consistent pattern of not following safety protocols, and them doing budget cuts, and them firing people, and then bringing in people that were so woefully underqualified that they literally said that they were afraid to load blanks into the firearm.
Okay, so you got to explain that one to me. Why were they afraid?
No,
Why?
Just,
Because they're
I have
underqualified.
no fucking
Okay.
idea.
Okay, so
I mean,
there's
like
a bigger point
that's
here.
the-
There's a few errors that I just want to highlight that I just think is worth
That's fucking
correcting. Right?
amazing.
So I think
Okay.
I completely agree with you that like Alec Baldwin should have some culpability. The only thing I'd say though is he was an executive producer, which sounds like a role of big gravitas. But often lead actors are given the executive producer role not because they have like a significant input into the production process. More so as it's more so of like a sort of like, oh well, we'll give this person that, and it gives a bit of a credos to the film and stuff like that. It's not necessarily indicative of a large insight into like the production.
No,
process,
100%.
right?
That's why I'm saying we have to investigate to what
Yeah.
level his involvement was.
I totally agree with that. And listen, the bigger issue is about the unionization and like working conditions. I totally agree with all of that. The only thing I'd say though is like, yes, there were safety issues, and I believe there were some discharges that have been reported and stuff like that. But there were other issues as well. It wasn't just because of gun safety. There was like
Yeah, that's
housing
what I
issues
said.
and
That's
stuff
what I
like that.
said.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay,
literally
must
said
have missed
that.
Yeah,
Well,
okay.
this is why I'm touching on the corporate culpability aspect too, because I'd like to think that in this chain of events here, there's multiple fuck ups on multiple people's ends. There's multiple budget cuts to ensure a lack of safety in the production of this film. There's multiple issues in this chain, but I don't think that we can hold every individual who had some say in these little things in regard to like how we're going to penalize these people. So I feel like this is kind of a liability when a group makes a film that they are kind of assuming when they, sort of collectivize and put together a group art piece, like if that's what they're doing, they're making a film to avoid the bureaucracy of like the legal system in terms of, this guy held the gun at 1 p.m. and loaded it with the, this round instead of loading a blank into it, blah, 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 right? Like, I feel like there's going to be some sort of responsibility on the end of the company, the production company themselves, in terms of their sort of malpractices in terms of hiring unqualified people to take on these responsibilities.
Yeah, I'm still not giving anybody, and I don't care a fuck who they are, right, a pass on individual gun safety and knowing what the rounds are that are in the weapon, right? There's just no way for me to be able to say, oh, well, someone else is responsible for whether or not the weapon that you have in your hand that is capable of taking the life of another human being. And here's like the other fucked up thing, right? It's 2021. Why is it that anyone would need to actually fucking be on the other end of the gun having it pointed at them? Why is it that they couldn't have CGI'd this fucking shit?
Right?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I made this argument myself.
I mean, you
like
get
Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers came out in 2006.
Well,
all right,
it's-
it's been 15 years since we could make whole armies of fucking orcs on a computer screen. I'm pretty sure we can use a fake fucking gun and CGI in there. The effects.
I don't necessarily
Hey,
disagree with that. But
hey,
it's
The Walking Dead has
whoa,
been
whoa,
using real guns on
wait.
set for like 12 years now or something, and as far as I'm aware, there's been no problems there. So in this particular
because of
case, it
cost.
just seems like there was a lot.
Yeah, I was
really
gonna say.
But you can look. Hold on. Let's address the cost. Let's address the cost issue, right? Let's address the cost issue. All you'd have to really do, right, is have Alec do his fucking cut scene of fucking shooting the weapon, right, and then the other person reacting to being shot from the weapon, which in reality is what would be happening on both fucking ends. A simple YouTube edit that we could send to Mr. Geek, right, would handle this fucking situation. And you want to speak to me about fucking cost? Give me a break.
Okay, well,
True,
I guess,
shout out to Mr. Geek, okay?
Look, obviously,
he was talking about
CTV,
CGI though.
CTV is obviously full of shit. Like he's just fucking doing his character, right? And that's why it's difficult to engage with him because it's like engaging with a cartoon character. But anyway, that's besides the point. At the end of the day, CGI is expensive. I totally agree. Listen, get the fucking CGI in there, but obviously cost is prohibitive, especially for a small production. And that's why they have to, because obviously you can have lower cost CGI, I guess. But I mean, have you seen some of the fucking cheap productions of the CGI and how shit it looks? Like obviously they want the
Kings of
authenticity.
Atlantis,
I mean, it's just one of many points, right? Is that there are other options here to make things safer.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Ultimately, I don't give a fuck about regulations. I'm a damn anarchist. But
All right.
that being said, I'm just gonna add one thing.
And then
In
I
the
want to put in
beginning-
here to wrap this up.
Before you
Go ahead.
add,
In the beginning,
can
in
you
the
hold
beginning.
that thought because I was addressed
can't.
specifically.
No,
I was addressed specifically.
Wait. CTV, just let him finish real quick because we're gonna go into closers. So
it's like
you can go
10
ahead and
seconds.
rebut, and then we'll do like
this was- and
30
this is-
seconds more, and
Okay.
then go into closers.
This is to add to CTV's point, right, about the individual responsibility. This is why, in the very beginning, I brought up criminal negligence, right? Criminal negligence does not require mens rea. It does not require him to know about gun safety. It does not require him to know that when he pulled that trigger, there wasn't a blank in there. Criminal negligence is based off of the fact that he should have known, and that it would have been reasonable for him to have known that you don't point a fucking firearm at someone and then pull the trigger if you haven't cleared the fucking weapon yourself.
Cool. Now, Chud Logic. Here's
yes, mate.
the
Go on.
here's the reality situation. I like you.
I like you too, friend.
Good deal. Now, from here, right, the attempt to try to discredit me because I play a character on another podcast in this particular conversation only shows to me, right, the lack of depth that your mind can go into when it comes to conversing with a human being, right?
Okay,
That's the
yeah.
only thing that it really does, because at the end of the day, I'm very passionate when it comes to gun safety, and you can expect me, right, especially when people are trying to obfuscate that responsibility from the individual that was handling the weapon to a third party, as if that first party was never supposed to have any responsibility at all. You can expect me to fight back against that idea. I don't give a fuck what fucking character it is that you think that I'm playing, but that's the reality, because individual responsibility is at the fucking core of who I am as a person, period.
Okay, well, I've got a
Right,
question
but-
for you. Sorry, one quick question, and then I'll stop speaking. When can we expect the first movie from CTV Studios, and what's it going to be?
Well, I tell you what, if Chud Logic was to get on board with helping fucking throw that my way, we'd probably see it happen a lot quicker.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
We're talking
Wait, hold on.
2023.
Literally, give me like 1 minute, and I can actually get the first CTV brand movie.
There we go.
I have a meme for this. I have one saved somewhere.
Mm.
Okay, well, while he's looking for his meme, if we want to
It's
add anything
probably
else,
Jurassic
to
Park
the-
related, if we're being honest.
It's not.
because we stayed on the Alec Baldwin thing for a while, and I think that's an easy one because everybody was on it. Do we have anything more? We'll give it like another 5 minutes if we want to get into the Travis Scott things a little deeper, as far as like, you know, could we get into like a culture discussion as far as like, you know, how culpable are parents for letting their children go to these things after knowing what happens here. I have my own little anecdote I'll add into this. Like, whenever my oldest sister was really young, she wanted to go see that band. I don't even know the fucking name of the band, but it was the guy that was like talking about all the girls. He's like, got Tina by my side. Yeah, that shit.
Blue
She
bad guy.
wanted to go there. Okay, yeah, I can't remember the fucking brain fart. It lost me. So she wanted to go there. My mom was like, "Fuck no, I know what goes on there." Okay, so it's literally this #1 hit song is like talking about how many girls he slept with. No, fuck that. Okay, so how culpable are the parents? Is there anything, you know? Is this a culture issue? And you know, so can we get in more into like the Travis Scott stuff on that?
Yeah,
regard?
I can chime in. I
Yeah.
As someone that grew up as a metalhead, I went to a lot of metal concerts, and I've been in a lot of mosh pits, right? And there's a culture, if you're in metal or new metal or screamo or, you know, whatever, death metal even, right? That in a mosh pit, people let people that are injured out of the mosh pit, right? And they don't trample on people. And despite the fact that you're literally at a concert to violently punch and shove and kick people, right? I've been to plenty of mosh pits where there are no serious injuries. I've been to fucking wall of deaths that didn't have serious injuries, right? And so I think what's important to understand is that the Travis Scott situation is a lot more complicated, right? The culpability of Travis Scott egging on people, I actually find to be less culpable than Alec Baldwin's situation. And the reason I say that is I've been in death metal concerts where they literally tell you to beat the shit out of people, right? They will say that on stage. But the difference is that they're responsible in how many people are in the venue. They're responsible about where the barricades are set up. They're responsible about how much security they have, right? And so while Travis Scott is a bit of a piece
I
of
know
shit
I'm not
in this
supposed to do this
situation,
as a moderator, but I just want to. I think this is objective information regarding the Travis Scott thing. It's my understanding that this is like a common theme among his
yes,
concerts, though. So this is something that he does a lot, and he eggs the crowd on at almost every show that
absolutely.
he's
But
at.
what I'm saying is that
Okay.
what I'm saying is there are other factors here beyond just the egging on from the artist, right? The venue has a responsibility. I think one of the best things you can look at, right, is Led Zeppelin is famous for this meme, right, where they would give a list of instructions to the venue when they showed up. And one of the instructions was, we want a bowl of M&Ms on our in the VIP lounge, and we don't want any green M&Ms in there. And when they would get there, if there was a single green M&M, they would leave and they would refuse to do the concert. And people might say, well, why would you do that? And the reason is because Led Zeppelin had a lot of pyrotechnics. And they knew that if these people weren't following their instructions to the letter, right, they couldn't trust them to be responsible with the pyrotechnics. And so Travis Scott is a rapper. He's not in charge of shit, okay? These fucking rappers in the industry are just people plucked out of a fucking SoundCloud somewhere, and a music industry label is fucking managing damn near every single thing about them. And so I think he has a lot less culpability despite some of his bombastic attitude, because there's fluid dynamics that are at play here. There's the companies, there's the venue. There's a lot of other things that I think hold more responsibility than Travis Scott does.
That Eminem story is fucking awesome. I'm glad I've learned that. That was
Yeah,
actually
I never
cool.
knew that, and I really like Led Zeppelin too, so that's cool.
I've heard that story before, but I will say, in regards to the Travis Scott concert, I also think it's important to think about the cultural aspect of it too. When you think of the type of mainstream success someone like Travis Scott's had and the type of audience that's going to be there, I will say I don't know if it's quite as like corollary to something like a metal venue, because I've been to some.
It sounds racist. Are you?
No. I mean, it could sound racist, but I'm not taking it in a racial direction here. I'm just saying,
Can't
as
take
someone,
it racial, because every time Eminem put a concert on, you know he was there working with Dre, right? So you can't take
It was
it.
a joke.
What? No,
yeah.
no,
I'm just-
am I gonna
no.
finish my sentence? Or
Hey,
How was that no?
please let
How was
Dylan
that
finish real
no?
quick.
yeah.
Let him finish real quick, and then we
Yes.
can go to you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I think the big difference here is Travis Scott is an artist who's seen such mainstream success that the type of audience that's going to be at a concert like that, as opposed to some niche metal concert, like the types of metal concerts I've been to where we've had pits, are like Ice Nine Kills, right? Bands like this. So, you know, they're
Or
not
Slipknot, right? Like that was bigger than Travis Scott ever was.
That's not true. Slipknot is not nearly as large as Travis Scott is currently. They in terms of records sold and like out units moved and the types of attendance that goes to a Travis Scott concert versus something like you can look at the amount of attendees at something like Knotfest versus something like Travis Scott's concert he just held here, where there were 50,000 people. Also, I think there's something huge to note, that there's going to be a lot more children at the Travis Scott concert dancing the sicko mode because they heard it on Fortnite, as opposed to some like Slipknot song where Corey Taylor's literally yelling about how he pushes his fingers through his eyes and shit like that. So, I mean, there's going to be a big difference in terms of the types of audiences there too. You got to think about this. These children are not going to be, you know, making themselves at home in a pit or anything, because I don't think 9-year-old Lenny is gonna see this giant, you know, metalhead guy who looks like Dimebag Daryl come over to him and punch him in the head. So like, there's a little bit of a cultural difference too, you know. Like I just felt like it was important to throw that out
Oh my
there.
God.
All right.
I
Well,
mean, yeah, sure, but I'm looking up the numbers because I'm willing to bet that Slipknot has thrown bigger fucking
Yeah,
concerts.
Oh my God.
Hold
Okay.
on.
What
If
the
we're
fuck do I
talking
have
about
to give for that
culture,
conversation?
we're talking about
Right,
culture.
hold on,
I'm gonna point out the redneck
'cause
rave
we were
that happened
waiting.
recently.
we were waiting for CTV to hop in, but I just wanted to interject and just say that Slipknot is absolutely better than Travis Scott.
Oh my
Better
God.
for sure, I agree.
Absolutely.
Those are the
Absolutely.
numbers. Okay, yeah, go ahead, CTV.
Yeah. So, like, look, when it comes to Travis Scott, at the end of the day, Led Zeppelin set the example back in the day, right, for what it takes to be successful in the industry, as well as a lot of other great bands and artists along the way, right? And I think that maybe it's important for us as the older generation to kind of watch these things kind of come into fruition, to make sure that we hold artists to the same kind of standards that we've seen in the past. If you want to fuck around, guess what? You'll find out. You got people killed because you weren't being responsible or understanding your responsibility in a venue in which you're trying to perform your art, right? It's not all about just obfuscating that responsibility to a third party. And I do think that there is some culpability when it comes to an artist putting on a concert and then people end up getting killed at your concert. They didn't come here to see the fucking third party entity or the managing company that fucking is handling shit for you. They came to see you. So you need to be kind of thinking about these things. And I will say this just so everybody understands how philosophically consistent that it is, right? When January the 6th happened, right, I pointed out on the day that I felt like there was an issue with Trump as president because he missed the entire tactical and strategic situation on the ground. The strategic being that there were so many people there in the Capitol that it could cause a situation, and the tactical situation on the ground, understanding that there was not as many fucking police officers on the ground that needed to be there, right? He didn't understand those two key fucking things, and that's why I said the things I said about Trump on the 6th.
To be fair, Travis Scott concerts are now officially more dangerous than Trump protests at the Capitol.
Oh, there you go. So I mean,
God.
we're at that point now.
What did I just come back to?
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and go into closings on this topic. Anybody ready to take this one? Anybody want to volunteer? We'll start with Chud Logic then.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, I think some agreement like with overall culpability and stuff like that. Obviously, we didn't have the hardcore Alec Baldwin hating, which is a shame because it's always good to get into. And the Travis Scott thing, I think the final thing I say is like appreciate what people are saying. Agree that maybe like when he saw the ambulance, he maybe should have done something. But one thing to bear in mind is that he's obviously like a raucous performer and people go there for that. Obviously, it ended in tragedy this time. It's worth bearing in mind that when you're on stage like that in front of all those people, you can't necessarily hear exactly what's going on. So some of the critiques that I've heard, maybe not on the panel, but elsewhere of him, just ignoring people, fall a bit short when you take that into account. But yeah, sure. I mean, he should have, done more, certainly when the ambulance was there. And yeah, hopefully things will change so that sort of thing happens less than it does already. I don't know. That's it.
Okay. We'll go to Dylan Blay.
I mean, this was not a topic I was particularly looking forward to when it came to this panel, but I will say we did have a pretty interesting conversation on the subject in terms of culture around gun safety and I guess music venues too. A whole bunch of stuff, individual culpability, group culpability, all the good stuff. So I will say that. Other than that, I guess that was pretty interesting. My final thoughts are I think both need to be held accountable to some extent. I'm not sure what kind of legislation you would have for that kind of thing there in terms of what the facts, and all these investigations turn up. I guess that's all I got for that one.
Okay. Let's go to Tiberius.
Yeah, while I felt like I was more in the opposition, is that whenever I made a point, no one gave me a rebuttal, so I'm going to assume that I made them distinctly and succinctly, and so I don't have to, clarify anything that I said. So I have to end with a question. CTV, when is Fox going to hire you to have a multi-million-dollar show?
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to CTV since he was...
Well, I mean, it's obvious, Ty, right? You haven't bothered fucking calling Fox and like expressing your deepest love for CTV and the millions and millions of CTV's fans, right, that are out there, right? So there's the fucking meme, I guess. So back to reality.
There goes gravity.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right? So, so back here to reality where we're all sitting at, which is like all of us are fucking poor people out here trying to entertain the people for some subscribers and bits on a fucking Twitch channel. That's what we're kind of here for, right? And the difference between me and all of you are, though, is that I'm trying to facilitate conservative community. So that's the difference. So when it comes to Travis Scott, you need to understand that if you as an entertainer are facilitating events, it actually can and should right, be your responsibility whenever you're facilitating an event as big as the type of concert that you're putting on. And you definitely need to make sure that your instructions are being followed. And if you are the one failing to give said instructions, then that's where your inexperience, right, in the type of venue where you didn't do the proper networking ahead of time, talk to people, hey, what are the things you need to worry about, et cetera, become evident, right? And whenever you do the very things that cause the things to happen, well, that brings us to Alec Baldwin, right? You didn't pick up the weapon and know what the condition of the weapon was before you got a young woman killed. Alec, you need to be held responsible for your part in picking up a weapon that had the potential to kill another human being. And as an executive producer, right, which you are in fact responsible for these sorts of things, right? Need to be held culpable for not trying to figure out a way to film a movie, which is just art, people. There is no art worth a life. I don't give a fuck what art it is. It's not worth a fucking life. And you need to be held responsible for your part that you played in that, because a young lady got fucking killed, man. That's ridiculous. And if there were other people, like Fabian said, right, that were leaving the set early because they didn't want to be a part of it because of safety protocols, there's a big fucking problem. So in both fucking cases, both individuals need to be held responsible for the parts that they played. And it ultimately does come down to individual responsibility and understanding your place in the world. And as people that are talking to other people out there in the world, it's important to do that, right? Like, you can't, like, I mean, let's be honest, right? I've got, what, millions and millions of fans. I have to be very careful with the things that I say, because if I just was to start calling for people to start flooding Chud Logic's, Twitter stream with wolf howls or, anything to be like, demeaning or anything like that, kind of like you've seen, from other communities in the past. We won't name any names, right? But we don't want that kind of hostility here in Twitch politics, folks. What we want is a good meme community that talks about the issues of the day. And if I'm not right, then this ain't the community for me.
All right. Xanderhal, go ahead, buddy.
Travis Scott is clearly a fucking demon, sacrificing souls. As I said before, it takes 666 dead Travis Scott fans to give him immortality forever, okay? You've got to stop him before he reaches that number and he gains lordship over all of the world. No, but to be completely serious here, I mean, yeah, but both of these situations are completely tragic. Neither of them should have happened. I do disagree with Scott to the top left here. I do think that Travis Scott saying things like, we're still letting the wild ones in. If you're crazy enough, we'll still let you in, even though we sold out tickets. I feel like stuff like that is perhaps maybe there's some moral culpability there. Do I think that Travis Scott intended or is responsible for those deaths? Maybe that's too much of a stretch. But was there a significant amount of neglect for the crowd and the people in it and their safety in this show? Absolutely, undoubtedly, and inarguably.
Okay, and go ahead, Fabian.
Yeah, so
what should do I need to say your whole Fabian?
You can just call me Scott,
Liberty Scott, or just Scott. Okay, perfect.
And then at the end, you can pimp out my channel.
Great, true.
So I disagree with Xanderhal on two things.
So that was Fabian being confirmed as a whore. Got it.
All right.
What?
So
confirmed.
Two
also,
things,
we have to stop Travis Scott. Okay.
Well, I am a capitalist, so I'll sell myself for some money. Two things, Xanderhal. Number one, well, when you can solve the economic problem, Dylan Blake, come back and talk to me. Two things. Number one, clearly he's not a demon. All right, he was trying to construct a philosopher's stone, and I think you were on the wrong part of 4chan. You're not getting it right. He's an alchemist. He's an alchemist.
This is his closing. Okay, guys, let's be.
Second, sorry, you disagreed with me on the culpability of Travis Scott, and I think the best example I can use is that Cannibal Corpse sings songs like "Rape Me with a Knife," and they don't have people getting hurt at their venues, right? The occasional bruise, the occasional concussion can happen,
no.
right? But they don't have 9-year-olds getting trampled to death, right?
Oh,
I
no,
think
I'm not talking
Hey,
about
this is his closing.
My
Okay,
closing statement.
this is
allow
not.
me,
This is
alright?
not.
Alright,
If you want to,
So-
I'll tell you though. If you want to address this, you can address it in the opener of the next round.
Right. So I think it's important to understand that it's more likely the venue that's responsible. And also, we have to have a conversation about the music industry and about the way they treat rappers and the way they find rappers. Because we idolize these people, and what we don't realize is that almost every minute of every day that they have is scheduled by a large corporation that takes almost all of their fucking money. Right? Like these people, this idea that we're going to give them culpability because of some bullshit that they said on stage, while I do think what he did was irresponsible, I do think he has some level of culpability. When ambulances were occurring, where people were jumping on stage, he should be cognizant of what's going on in his crowd. We have to understand that things like fluid dynamics and things like that are not something that Travis Scott. When did I accidentally mute myself?
It just popped out for
For a
me.
few seconds. For a few seconds.
Oh, that was weird. Sorry.
I don't think it was
I
you.
didn't
I
click
think it was
anything. It
quick
just
hit.
muted.
It was
Yeah.
just for a second.
Yeah, so I think when you understand that, like, it's the venue that's responsible more so, and it's the company that's representing him, the label that's representing him, that likely booked this show, that likely talked to the venue, that likely set up what the standards were for the type of show that he was putting on, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the Alec Baldwin situation, I don't think there was a whole lot of disagreement with me on the rest of the panel because everybody was quoting me. So I guess I'll just leave it at that, at kind of like what I had said previously, which is that, Alec Baldwin likely has some culpability. He certainly has some individual culpability, and I think we should have an investigation as to whether or not he should be charged with criminal negligence or whether or not they should just be left to a civil suit at that point. And all of the red flags within production and all of those things, we need to find out whether or not that was Alec Baldwin or whether or not he was simply given like the title, and really it was a production company that was handling most of these decisions.
I guess my main
Whoa! Closing
Okay.
statements.
We're moving on. We're moving on to the next one. If you want to address this, that's fine, but you're gonna have to do it in your opening of the next round, okay? 'Cause we gotta keep it
Yeah,
moving for time.
Xanderhal. What the fuck
Try-
you thinking?
I'm trying to respect all of you guys' time, okay? All right. So, the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff.
Hello? Fuck. I think I got kicked out. Oh, God. Fuck, the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff is the stuff I wanted to talk about.
For service. Understand that from the start. It's been that way ever since they ended the draft in Vietnam, which means 50 years of history. And I think that right there should speak volumes to the sacrifice that Sprouticus is making, and the fact that he is still trying to keep up with what's going on here in the Twitch politics community.
Exactly.
And that right there is what needs to be not only like remembered and honored, right, but like respected, because he genuinely cares about what goes on here in Twitch politics, and I think that's important. Chud Logic, glad to have you back, brother.
Yeah, so I shared the links in the DMs if you guys want to share that. You don't have to, but if you guys want to go follow Sprout on Twitch and on Twitter, you should do that. He's a cool dude. Okay, so wait, I want to make sure Chud is everything
I'm back.
working? You good?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, it's just troublesome, but I'm back, sorry.
Okay. I just didn't know if you needed a minute to get your little
No.
avatar back and stuff.
It's not gonna. Yeah, I'm having those technical issues, so I don't think that's coming back. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm on a old gaming laptop.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't worry
We
about
want to see the wrestler, okay?
the fucking still picture, right? If we wanted him to just capture a JPEG and put it on the screen, he could do that, right? But frankly, I'm more interested in the man's takes rather than the picture that he's showing. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. All right. Well, then in that case, let's go ahead and get to the next topic, which
There we
is
go.
Kyle Rittenhouse. There's so many places to go on this. So, obviously, I don't think everyone here seems like pretty reasonable people. I don't think we have to get around the facts of the case. If we do, you guys can address that first. But I think the more important conversations that are going to be had is whether or not this is going to be something that could potentially set a precedent if he is found guilty. The behavior of the prosecution so far during the trial, because to me this feels like right now we're kind of in a lose-lose scenario, especially if you're Kyle Rittenhouse in this case. No matter whether you're prosecuted and you go to jail or you lose, and if you're released, you lose because of the way the media has behaved in covering this and demonizing him. So we'll kind of take it from there. I feel like we can go basically anywhere on this. We'll go ahead and start with CTV on this one. You're muted, by the way.
Sorry, I mean, if you looked recently, you'll see that I've got like a 4-screen setup I'm trying to
that's
run
right.
now. It's ridiculous the amount of screens I got. It's nice, amazing, and anyway. Now, Kyle
First world
Rittenhouse.
problems, right?
It's first world problems, exactly. So, Kyle Rittenhouse. How do we really, and I mean really, feel about this young man going to what was going to be a potential protest and destruction of property like we had been seeing for the entire summer out on the West Coast? Oh, we've been seeing it for a while. And we also seen some of the things that happened in Wisconsin as a result of George Floyd's murder by Derek Chauvin, right? Or at least that's how the case went. So, how do we feel about Kyle Rittenhouse? Well, first and foremost, 17 years old, that young man exercised extremely excellent, and I do mean excellent, control of his firearm. I really can't point to a more pertinent example of excellent firearm use in the 21st century. And I don't think anybody else can either. So because of that, we look at the case, right? We've got a prosecutor that during one of his examples thought it would be a good idea to point an unloaded firearm at the jury with his finger on the trigger, showing that he did not understand basic firearm safety from the start. To anybody that, frankly, in a country that prides itself on individual liberty and individual responsibility and firearm safety, which we just covered in the last topic, to the entire nation, he showed himself to be someone
Hope
that didn't know
everyone
what
has
the
a nice
fuck
night.
he was
Gotta
doing.
head out.
Wow.
Enjoy y'all's evening.
I feel like after having watched a lot of what's been going on this past week and everything that I knew about the case before the trial got started, that Kyle Rittenhouse is 100% not guilty of any of the charges that they have brought before him, and frankly should be recognized, if at a minimum, by the community of Kenosha for the amount of control that he showed of his firearm. Because frankly, I do believe, and I mean I believe this, right? Especially after some of the other examples we've seen from people his age. A thank you for the amount of control that he showed over his weapon that night. because there has not been one shred of evidence that has been presented that would make me consider for even a moment that that young man would have lost his right to self-defense that night. And all of the individuals that went to engage him were guilty of the very things that they themselves would point their fingers at Kyle for, just for possessing the weapon. And that right there shows their ignorance. And that's exactly what people need to understand.
All right. Tiberius, go ahead.
Yeah, man. I've got 1,000 thoughts to this because it's not only just like legal precedent; it's meta ethics. I think the reason why this actually blew up as a case is because, in a general level, this is part of the quote unquote culture war between right and left, where we're trying to have this identity conversation about who we want to be as a country, and this actually gets to the heart of it. We're dealing with things that will be personal liberty and personal safety in regards of, do we allow people to have firearms? Do we allow people to go from one community to another to help, if you will, volunteer police it? There's so many questions. There's so many things that I can actually head into. Here's the highlight reel from. Can I criticize the living shit out of why Kyle was there? Yeah. Can I say he was probably a little too young to be there? Probably. Here's the reality. Did he do anything that I don't want any functional adult to be able to do? No. And that's the end line for me. And I'll end with that.
Okay. Dylan Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, so like I don't know, I don't really have a super interesting take on the whole Kyle Rittenhouse thing. I mean, I'm gonna cut all the bullshit and all the posturing. I think that they should have quit him. This might be a little bit of a surprise take from someone who's as far left as I am, but I think the precautions he operated with that night, and the fact of the matter is, when you see a mob of people coming at you and one of the two people pointing a pistol at your head, I think it's reasonable to act in self-defense, and I don't think that they should find Kyle Rittenhouse guilty. I think that if they do, it's pretty much just an unfair trial at that point, because let's be real here. This prosecution has not been doing the greatest job.
Okay. Xanderhal, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the online left and just generally the left, all as a whole right now, is basically killing itself with how hard they're going against Kyle Rittenhouse. I've looked over the evidence. I've looked over the videos, including the amount of drone footage that's been leaked so far from the trial, or leaked, shown so far from the trial, and it's pretty damn obvious that legally speaking, and I would argue even morally speaking, that Kyle Rittenhouse was reasonably in fear of his life in the case of all shootings of other persons that occurred. I mean, the video evidence is enough for me. I've seen it. I've seen the up close stuff, the drone stuff. Yeah, I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse should probably be let off. Is he innocent of every charge? Most certainly not. He was definitely in possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18, but that was, I believe, that was dismissed. That whole charge is dismissed, but he was certainly guilty of it. Just objectively speaking, he was under 18 and had a dangerous weapon, and he wasn't hunting or being supervised by an adult that was helping him use that weapon legally. But yeah, I mean, he probably shouldn't have his life ruined. And for those that do like Kyle Rittenhouse and feel bad that his life is over after all this, it's probably not. He's definitely going to get brought on by a large conservative media company, and he's probably going to have a very, if I were to guess, probably a very wealthy, well-off life. Assuming that actually ends up occurring, because oh my god, the amount of money any Fox News, Blaze TV, any conservative media site would make with the Kyle Rittenhouse show.
Okay. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm surprised anyone is talking about the gun charge. So I guess it wasn't really what I wanted to do in my opening statement. So I guess we can talk about that later, because that's just shocking to me that anybody would say that. But I think really the more interesting thing here is, because I haven't heard Chud logic, obviously, but it seems to be that the panel is kind of under agreement that obviously this is self-defense, and all of the evidence points in that direction. I think the really interesting thing here is that the left is so concerned about the politics involved in this case that they're really missing an amazing opportunity. And that is that for decades, the left has been talking about prosecutorial misconduct, has been talking about prosecutors' power, the fact that 97% of all criminal cases never see their day in court because prosecutors are so famous for lying and bullshitting evidence as a means of scaring people into taking deals that they shouldn't take. And because of the massive amount of prosecutorial misconduct, I think this case really shows what is likely going to be blatant Brady violations. The fact that the FBI lost footage and we just accept that, the fact that no one's talking about the fact that there's drone footage everywhere anyways, the fact that the prosecution still doesn't know who the person was that airdropped from their iPhone the drone footage, which is like, it sounds like the FBI playing fuck games. I mean, the fact that they intentionally gave a compressed file, and I'm sure the evidence is starting to show more and more that they intentionally, or even if they unintentionally, they knew and admitted in court that they had a better version than what the defense had and said, our version is better, right? This is possibly holding exculpatory evidence from the defense. And when this happens to black people, all of the fucking time, the left wants to make a big deal out of it because they should make a big deal out of it. And they want to talk about all of the ways that prosecutors fuck over minorities in this country. But when it happens to one of their political opponents, all of a sudden they're fucking silent. And I think this is a great example for them to just nut up, accept that this is self-defense, and use this as a stepping stone to be able to talk to the right about prosecutorial misconduct and the way our justice system is fucked up because of the amount of power that prosecutors have and how much lying they fucking do on a constant basis, because everyone can see it now because it's such a big event in the media.
Okay. Chad, go ahead.
Well, I'm very disappointed, my fellow lefties, or should I say white supremacist apologist, Kyle Rittenhouse, or should I say Kyle Hitler, was clearly going to Holocaust the entirety of Kenosha. Thank God he was stopped by the brave Antifa super soldiers, okay? You know, obviously Joseph Rosenbaum was a paragon of BLM and was there, I understand, to start that he was the next MLK, the white MLK. Very tragic that he died. Anyway, listen, in all seriousness, listen.
I can't abide that. I know it's opening statements, but I am not going to abide a pedophile being fucking compared to MLK.
He's memeing. He's memeing.
I don't give a fuck if it's a meme or not. I'm not going to abide it.
Chime down, CTV.
Listen, CTV. Stop getting triggered over jokes. Chill out. Okay, anyway.
I can't do it.
Anyway,
okay, let's let him finish.
Listen, okay. In all seriousness, I mean, to be honest with you, very disappointing, very stupid, some of the perspectives people have had on this. If you look at the facts of the case, from a legal perspective at least, it seems fairly clear-cut that, there was a strong argument, at least. We don't know yet, it's not been determined. A very strong argument that he acted in self-defense. I think there's question marks, over the fact that there's a 17-year-old lad on the streets with a gun. There's plenty of blame to go around for that, which we can get into. But what I really disagree with is CTV's opening statement really trying to kind of lionize the kid. I think that's really silly, and I think that will just lead to more people getting out on the streets that are 17 years old and taking similar actions, which I think will cause more harm in the long run rather than make things better. I think we need to have some degree of trust in institutions, as flawed as obviously I think they are as a Marxist. The culpability for me probably lies more with the state in terms of not maintaining order, which led to certain outcomes. But there's a conversation about that. In terms of the prosecutorial misconduct thing, I do see the point there. I guess I'd be interested to get into maybe some of the aspects of this in terms of what level of misconduct has occurred. I do think though that maybe there's a degree of the defence spinning a certain narrative there in order to have a mistrial. But again, it's something I'm interested to talk about. Overall, definitely some silly narratives about this. I think we're focusing a lot on the left and their narratives. The right have absolutely got their narratives too, and I think that needs to be criticised and called out also.
Okay, so I kind of figured that's what was going to happen with this topic. So I'll probably be jumping in a little bit to steer the conversation, and because I had some questions because I think once we understand the facts of the case, there is a deeper conversation to be had. And I'll add maybe one of those questions right now, which is like why an individual felt the need to be out there in the first place and things of that nature. When you have people that are not even going to pay attention to the facts, it's really hard to get to the deeper conversation and more important questions like that. So maybe that's one thing that you can add to You know, what kind of environment can lead a person to even have to feel like they need to be in that situation, because there were other people, not just Kyle, as well there.
I think it's important.
Yeah, go ahead. It's open floor. So
Yeah, I think it's important from the start that and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear anybody else mention what happened the previous summer, right? So this is an example of how, like, the things that happen in other localities can lead people to believe what might potentially happen in your community, even if it's a further state away. So as a nation, right here in the United States, it's incumbent and very, very fucking important for every law enforcement agency to understand that if you are not enforcing the fucking law and you are allowing courthouses and police stations and other fucking government-owned buildings and businesses to be looted and rioted against, that you're setting a dangerous fucking example for the rest of the fucking nation that ends up leading to the very events that we are holding a fucking trial for an individual that ended up having to defend himself that night because somebody thought that it would be a good idea to try to take his weapon.
I mean, wait a second though. I mean, I think that there's a degree of diminished responsibility on the perspective of Kyle because he was 17. You know, regardless of whether the legal perspective agrees or not. But I think you're putting a lot of onus on one aspect of this. At the end of the day, you know, we shouldn't be reliant on militias to defend property. That's craziness. And I think that there's a failing of the state that's occurred there. But also, what about
if we didn't rely on militias, we'd all be British.
Oh,
yeah,
nice
but
one. Okay, no, wait. Sorry, one
before you get too far,
okay,
before you get too far,
go on.
you get too far, right? Because, like, as we stated at the very beginning of this thing,
God, if you're just going to posture, I don't fucking care. I don't give a shit. Okay,
it's not posturing, right?
You are posturing, literally. You're holding a fucking gun.
No, it's not. It's listen. Individual responsibility, just like with my house, right? Just like which would be here in the United States, it's a privately owned business, right? The people have a right to defend their own property, right?
Okay,
which is
but
something that's inherently different.
It wasn't his property, so you made a stupid point straight away, okay? And the other point
well,
I want to
also,
make...
he wasn't he admitted several times that he wasn't defending property when he killed Rosenbaum. He was killing someone that was attacking him.
Yeah, precisely.
And let's all be honest, right? Like, we're all happy Rosenbaum's not in the fucking world anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can all agree to that.
Listen, there's been some good memes about the Rosenbaum stuff, but what I will say is this, okay? What I do think is that the fact that there wasn't a fucking responsible adult there going, you are 17 years old, fucking get your ass home, son. That's crazy to me, right?
So at what age? What age? Is it 26 when the frontal cortex is fully developed? Is that when you can defend property?
It's 25.
Like,
well, I guess
it's 24 for females.
I guess
for
if
males,
he was
average is
18,
25.
you know, it doesn't matter, does it? Because he's not.
So if he was 6 months older, it would be okay. That's your issue is that he was 6 months too young.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, sure. He was 17. Like, I don't think a 17-year-old.
So there's just like an arbitrary number that represents
well, hang on a sec.
all of human development.
You're doing the classic. Listen. You make sounding more like an ANCAB every second because you're starting to get close to the age of consent meme, aren't you? Let's be real.
That's because
hey,
he
you know
is
what?
an ANCAB.
ANCAPs aren't the ones that came up with the term minor attracted persons. All right.
Oh no, damn. Okay, fair play. I'll give you that one.
Okay.
Anyway, listen. I hate this thing of like, well, what if he was this age? Well, he wasn't that age, so what does it fucking matter, right?
But you're making the argument that his age is what is at issue here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm saying the dude was 6 months away from being 18, right? Like, what's the appropriate arbitrary cutoff where all of a sudden the actions
let's
become
fucking get
right
into
or
it.
not?
Do you think it's acceptable if someone is 6 months under the age of consent to have sex with them?
Well, I mean, we actually have laws based on.
Well, it's only 6 months. What's your
So,
problem?
since you want to go into the
6 months, what's your
age
problem?
of consent, right?
Oh, no,
you want to go. You want to go into the ANCAP,
Hold
meme,
on,
right?
hold
because
on.
you're losing the argument.
No,
I'm not losing the
trying to
argument
get-
at all. I'm making the point.
Fabian.
No.
Fabian.
You're
He's
losing
not
the
trying to go
argument,
into-
so you want to
No, I'm
go
not
into the
losing the
ANCAP
argument
meme.
at
So let's
all.
go into it, right?
Fabian.
Okay, boys, hold on. Everybody, hold on. This is our first cage match of the night. Okay, it's Ched Logic versus Scott. Okay, everybody else is muted. 5 minutes. Go ahead now.
Right. So you're talking about age of consent. There are all kinds of variables there already, right? So someone that's 17, for example, can have sex with someone that's 19 in most states, right? Because we understand that there's a 2-year difference, right? So age of consent laws are very rarely a hard line in the sand. Because we understand that so long as two people are close in age, right, that arbitrary number loses its distinction, because we recognize that someone that's 17 years old and 9 months is not wildly different from someone that's 18 years old. So you just made my argument for me because you stupidly walked into a trap about age of consent because you want to make a meme because you already know that you're wrong. So
No, I don't
make
know
an
I'm wrong
argument.
at all. The argument's really simple, right? I think that anyone under 18, right, has absolutely a degree of diminished responsibility in actions that they take, because I think that we do.
But 18-year-olds are fucking.
Why are you
dumbasses
interrupting
too.
me? Why are you interrupting me? Listen, you can get back to your fucking age of consent pedo shit in a second, okay? Listen, here's the
You're the one that brought it up, weirdo.
Yeah, I brought it up because I was trying to make a point to you that you were arguing of this arbitrary line, right? And the thing is yeah, it's arbitrary lines, but I think that absolutely someone at age 17, even if it's a fucking second before they turn 18, yeah, I think that there's a degree of diminished responsibility there. It's somewhat arbitrary, but I think it's important that we have these lines in the sand. And I don't think a 17-year-old has got any place out there amongst grown men, defending property with a gun. I think that's crazy, and I think that someone should have sent him home. But
Right, but you're making your distinction that something magically changes when they turn 18, that all of a sudden. So if he was 18, everything's acceptable?
yeah, sure.
So your argument then is just that he was 6 months too young,
Yeah,
and then
correct.
so what
That's the
follows
argument.
logically from that? All right, so what follows logically? Is that the only issue you have with the entirety of the situation?
I mean, there's lots of things you can get into, but I just think that for me, it's the fact that there wasn't an adult there to go, hang on a sec, you're a bit too young to be out here with all this fucking ruckus going on. Get home, play some.
Where were
play
the
some Call of
adults for the
Duty.
rioters, right? I mean, I'm not trying to engage in whataboutism.
Well, no,
I
you can
understand that
listen.
they shouldn't be
You
there
can
too,
engage with
right?
the fucking whataboutism all you want, because I've been very fucking critical of the violence that's occurred. Listen, you've come with this preconception that I'm a lefty and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, riots are based. No, I agree.
I didn't say that. You did.
No, but okay, but you're trying to imply that. And the thing is listen, here's the reality, okay? Yeah, sure. The people shouldn't have been out there causing wanton violence, right? Protesting is fine, but I think there's a level of violence there that was unacceptable and people shouldn't have engaged in it, right? So,
Right, but,
yeah,
but
sure.
the
There you
defense
go.
of property is a reaction to what is occurring, and I think the idea
If it's
that
all
you
adults,
think-
fine. Yeah, no problem.
Right, but you think only adults have the right to defend their communities, and I just think that's absurd. Like when people are burning down your fucking community, right? And you have the ability to be armed and you have the ability to protect your community, right? The situation has gone beyond how close to the arbitrary number of an adult I am. The situation is that the fact that my fucking community is burning and I need to protect it and I need to protect property. And I would have no fucking problem if he said I shot motherfuckers because they were burning down my fucking community.
Okay, but the
That's me
property
personally.
okay, would the property be defended okay whether Kyle Rittenhouse was there or not, do you think?
What's that?
Do you think the property would have been defended whether Kyle Rittenhouse, if Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't there, do you think there would have been more damage to property?
Presumably. I mean, I don't know. Right, you're engaging in probability of what would have happened, right?
So
like I can't. I'm
if
not.
there was one-
I'm not
yeah,
fucking
sure.
Nostradamus,
Well,
right?
well, no,
but
I
like, if
understand
one
that.
less person was armed, it is highly plausible that there would have been more property. We don't-
Plausible,
like
maybe, but
broken
not
windows
probable.
theory.
I
It could have
don't-
been wanton violence. We don't fucking know.
I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse's presence there was the one thing that prevented more damage being caused, right? So my point
I don't
is,
think that too. But you're asking me to engage in probabilities, and I'm
Sure.
telling you that that's an absurd argument.
I don't think it's an absurd argument at all, because your argument is prefaced on the idea that he had to be there because it was such a desperate situation. We've got to get young people out there.
That wasn't my argument. My argument is that he felt that he had to be there, and that I believe that he had every right to do so.
Right, sure, okay. Well, my whole point is basically, I just think that the idea that we have 17-year-olds out on the streets defending property, I think we just fundamentally disagree, because you think that's fine and acceptable. I don't think.
No,
I
I
agree
don't
with
think
that.
that's fine. I think it's acceptable given the circumstances. The problem is that we have people burning down the fucking community. The reaction to that problem, and from the police not doing their job, obviously, from the fact that we have media organizations that no longer have journalistic ethics, and that they're reporting about
I
the
agree.
Jacob Blake
Listen,
shooting.
why are you
Like, there's a
fucking going to that
multitude of
NPC
factors.
dialogue tree? I agree that this was all stupid. I don't know why you're fucking telling me this shit. I agree with you, okay? I think that can be wrong. And also...
I'm not going down an NPC dialogue
You
tree
absolutely
simply
are.
because I'm adding a level of analysis to all of the
and I've done all the coverage of it, and I agree that a lot of this is bullshit. I totally agree with you, okay? But I just...
Right, when you mischaracterize what my beliefs are and then I start adding to them and then you get defensive saying that I'm yelling at you some NPC dialogue tree, I'm going to call you out on your bullshit. I know that you're funny and you can meme about it and you're fucking very successful, right? But I'm still going to call you out on your bullshit, right? I'm simply talking about the multitude of factors that were there. Right? Because you're saying that the problem is one thing, and I'm saying, no, this is a reaction to a multitude of
but
problems.
you're misunderstanding. I'm not saying that this is the one problem. I don't think this is the only issue at play. I think that everything you're saying, I more or less agree with, and there was a media narrative, and the riots, and the burning, and all that shit.
Wow, boy.
I think that's
Alrighty. At that, you guys, that's it. That's the end of the round. You guys can hop back in, obviously, in just a couple minutes. You'll be muted, and everybody else has the ability to hop right in here. Go ahead.
We get a vote in the chat for who won the cage match, right? Let's get a vote in the chat going.
I want to piggyback off of more of what Chud said, because there's a point where I do agree with him. Number one, I'm not going to get into the age conversation.
I'm not surprised you agree with the lefty, Tiberius. Let's be honest.
Kiss my ass, man. Anyway, here's the point where I actually want to get into that I think is a relevant point here, is that we have a bunch of people in the street, whether which side they're on is not relevant to me, is that we have a bunch of people who are armed in the street who are very fucking angry. We need to do some shit. We need to have some conversations not only between the left and the right, but we also need to get some fucking shit done in this country, because we shouldn't have this many people who are upset, who are wanting to burn shit down. This is America. We're good at getting some shit done, but we've been really fucking it up of late, and I'm saying we got to do it. I'm sorry if I'm like memeing and dreaming a little bit here, but
finish the thought. Do what?
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the thing. We don't have to. We're gonna get this in topic 3, the infrastructure bill. Biggest fucking bill in the last 40 goddamn years. Bigger than the ACA. Are we taking victory laps? Are we taking Team America? Let's go. No, we're being partisan over it, and it's fucking bullshit. We actually agreed. Both parties agreed on what that goddamn bill was. And then the Republicans didn't show up to vote.
Jesus, you take the Lord's name in vain one more time. I'm gonna smack you upside the head.
Let's hold that for the next topic for sure. But
yes.
In regards to that, there is an issue at hand there, which is the media involvement and social media narratives and the two divisive sides right now. So how do we feel about the fact that this case, this only happened because of another case, the Jacob Blake shooting, and the media narratives and the media coverage on that, and the misrepresentation of the facts of the case, in regards to like how quickly information came out versus what was actually on the body cam and what was supported by the actual facts of the shooting itself. It's open.
Oh,
Wait.
yeah, no, I was, while doing research for the whole Kyle Rittenhouse Kenosha thing, something that surprised me a lot was how hard it was to just find an explanation of what happened. A fairly agreed upon, from beginning to end, explanation of the entire situation was basically impossible to find. Every single video from a news outlet, every article that I found for a while, and it took me a while to find an actual good explanation of everything that happened from beginning to end, unbiased, or somewhat
You know why that is, right?
Well, because this entire situation has been heavily politicized.
Well, I mean, yeah, the politicization of any type of situation that happens like this is going to find people not trying to find consensus, but rather find the divisiveness and get people talking about it.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to say that a good amount of the left-wing coverage, even from mainstream media outlets that have been talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, kind of fucking embarrassing. Like, listen, do I think Kyle Rittenhouse is a good kid, like a good person? I mean, I don't fucking know. I don't know if I agree with him politically or I like him all that much, but if we're talking about the morality and the legality of what he did, this kid does not need to be going to prison for, God, like some of those charges had like 25-year maximums for like some of the lighter charges had 25-year maximums. That's insane.
Yeah, and it's when you really sit back and you think about the charges that were brought against the kid, and then you take a look at the evidence, you know, and this is, and honestly,
yeah, he can get life.
this is one of those like real modern cases where we have the very like real benefit of having video evidence, right, of everything that happened that night. There's not a whole lot that's actually speculation, right? And because there's not much that's speculation, it really gets down to the root of what people believe in, and like at what point do rational, critically thinking people start to realize that you do not lose your right to defend yourself whenever somebody is coming up to you and trying to take your firearm. If somebody's trying to take something from you, well, that's fucking yours, man. If you come up and you try to take my gun, you best believe, right? One, I'm going to distract you from taking the firearm, or just outright physically holding the weapon in my holster while also pushing you fucking away, right? And then as soon as I'm able to get that motherfucker out, I'm putting you down because you have already showed the
In a video
intent. In a video game, sure, in Call of Duty, right? The intent, right, to try to hurt me, period. And it really does come to such very simple language. If you're trying to hurt me with my property, that's a fucking problem, especially when it's in my own possession. And that's where you find yourself with this Rittenhouse case is, regardless of how you feel about the kid having the fucking weapon ahead of time, he was an individual that had a fucking rifle, and this fucking pedophile decided he was going to go take this guy's fucking weapon. And at the point where Rosenbaum decided to take his fucking weapon, that's where Rosenbaum fucked up. But you know what? I'm not surprised, considering and again, we're in the 21st century where we have video for fucking everything. We've got video of Rosenbaum jumping up ahead of time saying, kill me, shoot me.
We don't disagree about this. We all agree that Rosenbaum acted wrong.
CTV, you sound like a kid that like is doing a book report and didn't read the book.
Yeah, but
you're not talking about any of the facts of the case or like any of the problems of it.
Those are all facts of the case because they ended up leading up to the fucking...
You're talking about shit we all knew a year ago.
Leading up to the asshole with the fucking skateboard that tried to hit Kyle Rittenhouse over the head, or the other motherfucker that put a fucking gun on him and pointed it in his fucking direction. It's important to understand the facts of the case that started the entire fucking event. And I don't know at what point where you feel like calling me out whenever I'm laying out facts of the fucking case is fucking warranted, but let me explain to you from the fucking start. It's important to understand it's important to understand what started off the entire fucking event, and it was Rosenbaum and his attempt to take Kyle's weapon that started the entire event.
Who was with Rosenbaum?
What do you mean, who was with Rosenbaum?
Who worked with Rosenbaum?
What do you mean, who worked with Rosenbaum? What's your point here?
Who fired the first shot?
What's your point here?
That you're not following the case. Like you're fucking filibustering.
Is it Zeminski? He fired a pistol shot just before it went down, right? Into the air.
Right, 2.6 seconds before.
Yeah.
Right. What like I think there's
completely unrelated else. that fact.
It's not
right
unrelated.
There.
You read
no that fact
instigated the whole. That instigated Kyle turning around to look when he saw the shot, and then he pointed.
Nah, this is a Fabian fucking trick, right? The fact of the matter is, right, is that the
that's exactly what happened.
It's like we're aware of the case and you're not.
Fired off ahead of time was not ordered by fucking Rosenbaum and is therefore not correlated to Rosenbaum's actions.
You can read like an SJW all you want, but you don't know what you're talking about.
The reality of the situation is that Rosenbaum didn't order the fucking pistol shot to be fired, and therefore it's not directly correlated to what Rittenhouse encountered. But the fact of the matter is that Rittenhouse did, in fact, hear the pistol shot, and therefore it fucking matters. So before you decide to go on some bullshit, Fabian, right, understand that I'm your fucking master, and that you need to sit back and shut the fuck up. How's that?
Am I really?
Wait, no, it just sounds like CTV's trying to put the pieces together after he just
Yes.
realized that everyone knew
Sounds like
more about
It's like he's in a classroom. He's in a classroom, and a teacher has a 3-minute timer. And he's like, "Okay, do your book report." And he's like, he's talking
right?
slow,
You want to say this
trying to
shit,
fill up your
and yet
time.
I'm sitting right here following the fucking case just like you. Zeminski doesn't fucking matter, right? And neither one of you pronounced it fucking right. So here we fucking
my
go.
God.
He does matter. He's
Am I
being
really
Who understands the
prosecuted.
facts of the fucking
He's being
case?
prosecuted as well. So it means he's being prosecuted
Exactly.
too. So obviously,
for
Look,
arson. yes.
CTV, our broader point is we understand the details of the case. We don't need to watch your little schizophrenia episode happen in the top right corner. I think
Here
that's
we
the broader
fucking
point.
go. Apparently,
like,
I'm the
like, if you're
one
gonna
that is
talk,
fucking
add
pointing out
something to
my
the
point of fucking
conversation.
view.
What
And
I'm
the
trying to
rest
say
of
is,
you,
like, there's
without
a ton of
anything to fucking say, want to argue back against it. That's exactly where we're at because we're at the barest of minimums of content when it comes to the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Thank you very much.
We're
You're at the
trying
bare
to talk.
minimum of
Yeah, we're
content.
trying to talk, but we just listen to you monologue over and over. You're like giving us a. Yeah, no, this guy's giving us some type of conservative soliloquy. It's like genuinely one of the worst things I've had to endure all day. And I watched an old man shit on the floor at my job today.
What
All right,
is
so
happening?
here's-
wait.
so here's
Somebody
something
needs
that we
to
can
call bullshit
actually
on
talk
that,
about.
right?
Oh my
So here's
God,
something
that's
we can
disgusting.
actually-
Where?
So
Okay,
we,
guys,
here's something
I
we
work at
can
a
actually
retirement
talk about the case, right? And about how it pertains to the idea of self-defense. One of the things that I think is really important, and I wanted to talk about prosecutorial misconduct, but it seems like we don't want to talk about that, even though I think that is probably the most important issue. One of the things that we can talk about is this overemphasis of the ammo that was used, right? And I think it's really important that we understand that when Binger consistently talks about Full Metal Jacket and is trying to get a lesser included charge of the discharge, right? Of the reckless discharge of the firearm, because Full Metal Jacket is designed to go through bodies, is I think one of the most egregious parts of this case. Because we all know that if he was using
That's
hollow point,
bullshit.
we all know that if he
That's
was using
bullshit.
hollow
Full
point,
metal jackets
Can I-
are not designed to go through bodies.
that's
Full
literally
metal
what I'm saying, but you're too
He's-
drunk to
yeah,
understand
CTV
this.
just
Oh,
Oh.
you're putting out misinformation.
wait,
exactly.
hold on,
Exactly. Who's supposed to be
CTV.
the arbiter of fucking truth here whenever you're putting out some bullshit?
CTV. He's repeating the arguments that the prosecution was making. He's not making those arguments.
What I'm trying to say is that the idea that they're making the argument that you can now charge people with lesser included reckless discharge based upon the type of ammunition they're using. If he had been using hollow point, they would be making the exact same argument that hollow point has additional stopping power and that it's designed to kill. And they would and the problem with that I think is extremely dangerous is that if he gets those lesser includeds, not necessarily the self-defense claim on the murders, but the lesser includeds is almost more dangerous, because if this doesn't get a mistrial by the judge because the jury decided to compromise on lesser includeds, right? What this does is this takes away our right to self-defense based upon the type of ammunition we're using. And at a certain point, it'll be understood that it doesn't matter what type of ammunition you're using. They're going to argue that that's a reason why you should go to jail and that you don't have a right to self-defense. Beyond the closing statement of Krauss saying that like people should just be shouldn't be cowards and should fisticuff, or the idea that Binger is saying that, he lost his right to self-defense when he brought in a firearm. But the actual charges there are something we really need to be careful of, because if we allow those lesser includeds to go through, it could set legal precedent in the state of Wisconsin that people cannot have a right to self-defense on any ammunition that they're using.
Yeah, so those were two questions. I'm glad you brought that up, because those are two places that I wanted to try to steer the conversation. Like, what kind of like precedent does this case potentially have for future cases? Like, can this case be used in future court of law? And then also the way the prosecution behaved. And because there were certain points in the trial where they were showing video footage, and then, I mean, they were really riding the line of borderline just flat out lying about what was on the screen. And so, to some degree, I think
they had
the
they
state
had compressed and edited that.
right. So I think the state is supposed to be held to a higher standard. And so, yeah, I want to get the panel's input on like how they feel about those two separate things, like the behavior of the prosecution and the precedent that it might set in the future. Go ahead, Ty. I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I've got like three things I wanted to add in real quick. Number one, the problem that I think Fabian's going to run into is I don't think anyone actually disagrees with him. And this is actually something I would like to see a bipartisan push on, is that our legal system is pissing off the left and the right across the board. and we do agree on most of this, that, you know what, we need to have comprehensive reform, not only with our police, but also with our jurisprudence and how we handle cases. The problem that I'm with you here, Scott, is that I just think you're literally you're preaching to the choir here. So I apologize for that, but I'm not going to disagree with you or fight you on that one. Number two, speaking of personal responsibility, there's this thing called a mute button if you have a problem with somebody in the damn panel. Number three is that I forgot what the fuck it was because I went brain dead on one of those. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say the only thing I'm a bit uncertain about is you mentioned it about precedents. My understanding is this isn't a precedent-setting case because of the way that the court system is structured.
Yeah, so it gets a little complicated, right? So like when you're at appellate courts, right, that can set precedent, right? Which is just, but you can set precedent with almost any case, right? So if you watch the trial, you'll notice that the prosecution was arguing in terms of whether or not they should review the footage from one of the from Anderson, right? Which is not a precedent setting case, right? So any case in America and in common law, right, which is, good old British tradition, right, can set precedent in the sense that once it's been argued correctly in one way or another, it allows other prosecutors or other defense attorneys to bring up to the court, well, hey, this was done this way. Obviously, it still becomes the court's decision, right? So we have to be careful about the term precedent, and I do agree with you, and I apologize for being a little loose with the language in the sense that, like, the judge doesn't feel it's necessary to go along with that precedent, right? And then, of course, once it goes to the Supreme Court, it becomes, or a district court of appeals, it becomes, law of the land. But we're still in a situation where in Wisconsin, this case can be referenced in other future cases of self-defense, right, as a means for arguing certain things that maybe wouldn't have been allowed into the court before.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I agree that the listen. All I know is Full Metal Jacket, Call of Duty, Stopping Power, whatever, all those memes. But yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, it shouldn't matter what ammo you're using, generally speaking, right? If you can legally purchase it and it's considered suitable for using in that situation, fine. I think Full Metal Jacket is just the cheapest kind of round that's available. It's just
standard ammo, and they're arguing that somehow makes him in trouble for reckless endangerment.
As a gun guy, can I actually pick an issue here? Like, it might not be worth picking, but I would almost ask and recommend that we do require not FMJ hollow points to be used in self-defense. Not against saying you're going to have that loaded every single time, but I mean, like, don't get me wrong, 100% you're right. When it comes to the prosecution, they should never be able to argue that we shouldn't be shooting hollow points. But as far as gun safety, I mean, goddamn, hollow points are way better to be shooting at people than FMJ, because FMJ is going to hit the guy and it's going to go through him and hit the next guy behind him.
And just to add a little context here for the case where this one guy, because something that was being brought up in reference to these cases and compared was the guy Reinhold who was shot. When he was shot by multiple officers, and there were apartment buildings that were struck. And this is the case that was made Breonna Taylor, the cops that shot Breonna Taylor, negligent or whatever the charges that were placed against them, because the bullets went in other buildings and stuff too. So yeah, just to add some little.
I want to take this moment to apologize to the panel that we're having to even hear from American Nacho, because apparently the topic has gotten so fucking boring that he's happened to open his commie fucking mouth. Right?
Listen. All I want to say is, like,
I know you want to say something, Chud, but like, here's the reality of the situation. I was going to be
able to keep quiet on the Kyle stuff. So
yeah, so here's the reality situation. Right, what we have here, right, is that one, the round that you decide to put in your weapon to carry doesn't actually fucking matter, because guess what? They all cause what? Deadly fucking force. So it doesn't matter if it's a jacketed hollow point or if it's a full metal jacket, they are intended to cause deadly force. So it doesn't actually fucking matter, right? And this is where we go back to the earlier conversation with regard to the blank rounds that were supposed to be put in Alec Baldwin's gun. They're not, it doesn't fucking matter. So the round of the ammunition doesn't actually matter. What matters is your handling of the weapon. And at every single fucking point for Kyle Rittenhouse, whenever there was any type of scrutiny with the way in which he handled his weapon, they could not scrutinize him on the way in which he handled his weapon. Why? Because he handled his weapon perfectly for every single situation that approached him. One, you had Rosenbaum come up and try to take his weapon. Two, you had the skateboard guy try to hit him over the fucking head. And then three, you had the fucking guy come in behind him and point a fucking pistol at him, and he admitted it on the fucking stand. So how's that for facts of the fucking case, Fabian? That's right. Shut the fuck up. Carry the fuck on, right? So from there, every single point in the case when it comes to the facts of it, is it one, I don't know how the jury could find him guilty of any of the charges, considering the fact that he never at not one single point
who are you arguing
fucking
against?
lost his right to
self-defense. Who are you arguing against on the panel? Who is it you're arguing against, CTV?
Everybody apparently.
No, I don't think you are, because like I think broadly we agree. I mean, maybe there's some disagreement over some of the lesser charges. I don't know.
If there's some disagreement, then I'm just when it's my turn to speak, I'm addressing everything, right? So like instead of trying to argue in the semantics of the thing, understand that I'm trying to address everything, right?
Filibuster this other bullshit that everyone kind of broadly agrees with. It just seems pointless.
I also think it's important to understand two other things, right? Like we need to know the Facebook account that was found by Binger, right? And we understand that he possibly was involved in some sort of relationship with another Kenosha judge, as well as the fact that we may be looking at a Brady violation again, in terms of what is referred to as jump kick man, because there's a lot of reports coming out, of course, after the fucking case is closed, and jury is in deliberation, about the fact that jump kick man may have been identified, and it may be that the prosecution was fully aware. We don't know, like this is still hearsay at this point, but there's a lot of reports that they knew who this individual was, that individuals have been able to track him down, that he offered himself to the prosecution in for a deal, and they didn't want to give him a deal because he was on parole for beating his wife, right? And they didn't think he would make a very good witness. If that is true, right, we are looking at the most blatant Brady violation ever, because that witness could very possibly be exculpatory evidence, right? And so, again, I think the really interesting thing here is, and why I think the left needs to be on board with this and just shut up about the politics of it, is that we have a lot of examples of how prosecutors lie, cheat, and steal to win their cases, and why district attorneys are some of the worst fucking examples of the justice system that we have. And, you know, just to throw in a little bit of a meme from an anarchist perspective, I think the fact that the state is in charge of protecting people's rights and in charge of putting people in prison is a clear conflict of interest, and it's a problem.
Sure, but I mean, there's obviously different bodies, there's checks and balances that exist in order to ensure that, well, I mean, ideally ensure, obviously it's not perfect.
Supposedly.
Supposedly, yeah, sure. But, you know, I don't know if there's different components that are supposed to be doing that. I don't know if that's quite, you know, the thing there. But I kind of see where you're coming from. And, you know, I agree. The only thing that I'm a bit uncertain about is, obviously, in order for prosecutorial misconduct to occur, I mean, how much of that would it be that it needs to be intent? Do you see what I mean? How much of it is incompetence? Like, how much intent is there, do you think, with the prosecution?
Well, so I mean, prosecutorial misconduct doesn't require intent, right? But a Brady violation does.
Okay.
Right. So a Brady violation is pretty much the only thing that prosecutors will end up disbarred for, right? And even then, they do it all the fucking time, right? Like, there's 1,000 fucking Netflix documentaries of them doing it. They just usually do it to poor black people that get no media attention and nobody pays attention to, whereas this case is under a microscope, and you can see the bullshit way that prosecutors operate because everything's televised, right? And I think it shows us a really good opportunity here. Now, the jump kick man scenario could be a Brady violation because that would show intent. The prosecutorial misconduct can come from the idea that they sent compressed files. Even if that's an accident, that could be misconduct because they had a responsibility to ensure that the state and the defense had the same evidence. And the same would be said about some of the FBI drone footage if there's some fuck games going on there. And the same would be said about the fact that they never released the individual's name, or that they didn't take the person's name that brought that last piece of footage that was obviously cropped drone footage. I think the fact that there was drone footage that happened to perfectly show the incident or not perfectly, probably because it's too far away to really see anything. But the fact that there was a drone footage that showed that going on at that time, and there was FBI drone footage up above. I mean, we know that the FBI is constantly pinging phones so that they can put trackers on people that are involved at multiple protests. This sounds like conspiracy theory, but it's just true. It leads me to believe, or if we get a little bit conspiratorial, that there's likely a lot of drone footage out there, and this just happens to be the drone footage that captured the incident. And it seems like this might be the FBI dropping some stuff off through someone else because they don't want the media attention to the fact that all these protests are being filmed everywhere so that they can track your ass.
Well, this is an interesting point. I think this I mean, listen, CDV referenced it, so I'm going to reference it, right? January 6th. I think that people on the left are very critical of the police and FBI, etc. Rightly so. I'm all on board for that, right? But it just feels like when the politics come into it and there's like a right-wing aspect to it, the left kind of just immediately rejects all of that. Best example I can think of is like Ashley Babbitt, right? We talk about unarmed people being shot by the police constantly on the left, and then an unarmed person is shot by the police. Admittedly, you can discuss what she was doing and stuff, but immediately is suddenly justifications start pouring out like fucking conservatives, right? When a fucking
it's the problem with the ethical basis of left-wing philosophy, right? And I won't bore the fucking panel because people don't like it when I talk about philosophy, but you don't have deontological or virtue ethics positions. The left has consequentialist or universalist positions, right? So the ends justify the means, and they're utilitarian calculus, right? So that's really the issue that you're talking about, is the ethical position of those that are usually on left-wing ideology.
But then I don't know if I agree, I see where you're coming from. Maybe some people prescribe to the idea that, like, I don't know, like, oh, well, we can just, be disingenuous and whatever because,
Well, it's not intentional. It's just that they do utilitarian calculus kind of subconsciously almost, right? It's like in this situation, all of the things stack up in such a way that they emotionally feel that it's bad. And then in another situation where it's against their politics, all of a sudden they start rationalizing and things like that. It's the problem with having your ethical foundation based upon utilitarianism or consequentialist ethics.
I think this is more just about like basic hypocrisy, people just being hypocritical and not looking at it from a balanced perspective.
Yeah, same difference.
No. I'm gonna back up Chud on that one because I'm gonna back up Chud on this one because for all the things that I hate about the left and where I'm just like y'all being fucking bastards, is that the right does it too. And since we mentioned January 6th, I was so fucking pissed at my fellow righties for trying to defend that shit because there was many that tried to, and there was a bunch of excuses, and I was not on board with this fucking bullshit. One little bit. It's not okay. Never was okay or going to be okay. So yeah, that bitch rolls both ways, and I will happily call out my own team on that one.
Well, I also call the right-wingers socialists and consequentialists too, and I feel like that's part of the problem.
Oh, everyone you disagree with is a socialist. How convenient.
Oof. No, just the socialists.
He's an ANCAP. Any micro existence of a state socialism.
That's pretty much pretty much it for an ANCAP, right? But like for me,
goddamn right.
Yeah.
Police, socialism.
There does in fact need to be a certain amount of government, otherwise you're going to have vigilante justice, with frankly Fabian Liberty is completely okay with. So Batman, guess what? Call Fabian Liberty. He's down for the cause.
Wait.
You don't understand ANCAP philosophy. It's fine. Don't.
No, I do understand ANCAP philosophy so much that I destroyed you in a fucking debate over in the Wolf's Den. That's how it's already happened.
Oh, I love that. I love that when people claim they won debates that they.
Right, so now that we're through interrupting CTV, right, the reality of like where we're at in this situation is that the facts of the case, I don't feel like convict Kyle Rittenhouse for the charges being presented, and I don't feel like, right, and feels, right, because I'm sitting here examining the evidence just like everybody else is, that there's a single fucking day that young man should be spending behind a jail cell because of the actions that he took on that day. Yeah.
Yes. I got a meta ethics question, and I don't know if everyone actually is going to agree with this one because this usually splits the field. But are we okay that in the presence of, or with the exemption of proper authorities, the police, law enforcement, National Guard, what have you, can people with firearms take into their own defense? I'm okay with this, but I don't know if everyone is. I just want to make sure that if everyone on the panel is okay with that.
Well, it kind of gets you into that whole like I mean, like whenever I get presented with this case, the Boston Massacre comes to mind, right? Because if you, yeah,
What?
are you not familiar with the events of that day?
Look, I get the Boston Massacre, but I'm like,
How is that comparable?
Yeah, like where are we at, my dude? Are you
Was
okay?
the Boston Massacre
Right,
a
so-
riot
so-
in which the authorities like let off a bunch of shots into the crowd?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, the reason why it's correlative is because of what you just said, Tiberius, right?
Okay.
Somebody taking the gun and then defending themselves, right? Well, at the point where the British soldiers were being thrown rocks at, et cetera, right? At some point, the people with guns are going to feel like they need to defend themselves. So this is where it is, in fact, incumbent on other people to understand the responsibility that comes with the firearm and how that is a means to self-defense. And that if you are antagonizing people with firearms, guess what? You're probably asking for a fucking ass kicking.
Wait,
right?
wait.
One more sec. And
Okay.
this goes to show with anybody that's like interacting with police at the same time. You know they have guns to begin with. Why antagonize these motherfuckers?
Wait,
right?
all right.
CTV,
I
can I
know,
ask
I
a
need to-
clarifying question first? I'm not going to argue against CTV. I'll let you go right after. I just want to ask a clarifying question.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
When you say like you should know and so on, right? These people have guns, don't antagonize them. You mean more so in like a logical way, like, okay, this is a bad idea. I shouldn't be doing this. And
Oh
if you
yeah,
end up getting
definitely. They have the
fucking
ability.
shot, then it's kind of
Yeah.
like you play.
They
with fire.
literally have the thing on their person that has the capability of ending your life. Therefore, if for no other reason, right? If it's not respect, if it's not for like anything to do with the system, if it's at the barest of minimums, like preservation of your own life, then you should show the respect to the tool, right? If not the person, but the tool that has the ability to be able to take your life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. Early on, I was going to give because people weren't arguing. Nobody was arguing earlier, and I was going to ask, okay, so do we agree that if you're holding a gun, it counts as lethal force if someone tries to disarm you and take it away from you? Because that's what happened to Kyle Rittenhouse. The Rosenbaum guy like ran up to him and was trying to grab his gun,
Yeah.
and I think he had burn marks in his hands. Is he the guy who had the burn marks?
Yeah,
that
Rosenbaum had
was the guy,
soot,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, so he
the
touched
medical
the barrel of the
examiner
gun.
testified that it was inconclusive as to whether or
okay.
not he was actually holding the gun, but that he was likely, at the very least, inches away from the barrel of his gun.
That's what it looked like in
Wow.
the video. In the videos, it looks like Kyle runs around the side, like the corner of that building, right at that point where the street kind of does a crossroads, and he ended up running down that street past the building, and that's where the second shooting occurs. But in the first shooting, Kyle's like up against a couple of cars, like between a couple of cars, and he doesn't fire till Rosenbaum's like on top of him.
Exactly.
All right.
Well, not only that, but he turns around the first time and he
Yeah.
raises his hands up. But you can see from the defense's expert that there's an elevation forward as well, right? So instead of like him stopping, what he does is he goes forward and it's more of a lunge. Now that's kind of like, I think, kind of the same level of hocus pocus as and what did he say? Hocus pocus. This picture's out of focus. Fucking Johnny Cochran line right there. If I ever heard one.
Banging meme.
Yeah, fucking amazing. But I think it's kind of the same level of like video wizardry that may have occurred with them trying to say that he was in charge of provocation because he raised his firearm off of grainy bullshit, fake fucking evidence that they admitted from people that literally don't even know how their own programs work.
Wait, the grainy thing, wasn't the concern with that? Maybe I'm mixing something up because there's been a lot of shit I've read the last like 3 days on this.
Mhm.
But wasn't the issue not that it was grainy or too blurry, but that the footage had been enhanced and zoomed in, and that technically adds pixels, which is
Yeah, so there was interpolation that occurred in the video footage from the pinch and zoom, right? But it's kind of a two-part situation because the files that they gave to the defense had 16 times less, or you should say 1/16 the amount of pixels that the prosecution had, right? So when the defense looks at it, they can't see a damn thing. It's just literally a blob, and it's too like they're just looking at it laughing, going, this is nothing, right? And when the prosecution has the original file, right, they're able to zoom in and then with interpolation make it appear as if the gun is raised. That is the footage that the jury was looking at, the original footage as well as presumably, possibly, we still don't really know which, because I had a hard time tracking the evidence numbers, but but possibly also the enhanced version as well, right? But they're looking at the color added enhanced version of that may or may not have interpolation, as well as the fact that there's going to be interpolation because it's a 4K TV that they're looking at it on, right? They're not looking at it at its original aspect ratio, like, minimized to the actual pixels on a laptop screen, but instead it's being blown up to 4K, and we don't know what TV interpolation is existing there as well. And it appears to kind of maybe show him raising his gun, but the problem is that it shows him raising his gun with the butt of the rifle on his left shoulder, right, and him using his right arm and his in the trigger near the trigger well, and his left arm to brace the rifle, putting the injection of the shells at his face, and in a totally awkward way, especially since he had a single sling, right? So he did his sling, that would have made it difficult for him to do that anyways. So it's almost physically impossible for what they say the video shows to even have happened in the first place. They know it's bullshit, fake evidence, and they know it's prosecutorial misconduct, but they don't care.
Well, you seem to know a lot about that particular part of the case, so I'll take your word for it. I don't think that you're like lying to me or anything, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no.
I mean, like the basics there is just like the way that a sling arms weapon operates whenever it's hanging from you versus like any other type of sling.
I was just going to say, sorry, I was wanting to say, like, the only thing I'd say is, like, I think it's important, like, I think breaking news is very difficult to cover correctly. It's just worth pointing out that a lot of this stuff with the footage is literally fresh off the press. That I think today actually is when this issue with the footage became apparent. And I believe they're going to have a ruling on it at some point. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that.
No, they objected to the footage. They objected to the footage immediately because of the interpolation.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, no, what I mean is the difference in quality is fresh information, right? But yeah, absolutely, they objected at the time, and I believe that they just threw it up on the big screen and they came and had a closer look. So it was still submitted, but without the zooming in. So we looked at it without zooming in. So yeah, I just think that, like, it's one of those things, and it does come down to, like, I mean, I'm not completely against the idea that the prosecution has acted inappropriately. I think it's an interesting angle and something was worth considering, But I think, if we're going to look to have some sort of faith in the legal system despite critique, which I've definitely got, I think it's important to go through the process and see what comes out of this hearing, and see, what the outcome.
Yeah, well, I think with the judge, the judge is hoping that the jury will save him, right? And I think that's why he's waiting to rule on the mistrial without prejudice, even though they should have asked for a mistrial with prejudice, because even the judge himself said, "I don't believe you," and that proves the bad faith claim from the court's own opinion, right? Like he said, when you bring this up, I don't believe you. He called him a liar and is arguing that he's in bad faith. So they absolutely should have thrown it in for a mistrial with prejudice. But I think what is likely to occur is the worst case scenario, honestly, is if he gets charged with the lesser includeds, because the judge may then feel like he'll just leave it at that, and Kyle could do prison time. If they come back saying, yes, we're going to charge him with first degree murder, I think the judge is almost certainly going to rule a mistrial and we're going to have another case. And if they come back saying, well, no, he's good on all counts, then the judge is going to be like, phew, I don't have to deal with this, and we can keep the corrupt prosecution team doing corrupt shit as they've always been doing.
The only thing is, my understanding with the mistrial with prejudice is there won't be another case. Kyle won't be tried again. That'll be it. It'll be done. From what I understand.
Yeah, which is why they filed with prejudice, but then they asked for without prejudice, right? Oh, okay. They should have asked for with prejudice, because with prejudice, I mean, hell, they should have asked for a directed verdict in the moment Gage. Oh my god, I can't pronounce that dude's name. Groiserwich or whatever.
Yeah.
Groiserwich. I can't pronounce it. But anyways, the moment that he said that he was worried about his safety, that's why he approached him, and that Kyle did not shoot until he raised his firearm, pointing it at his head, they immediately should have said directed verdict. Like, throw this out. And if they'd have thrown that charge out, that would have, like, we wouldn't even be having this trial issue as we see. Or if they would have just taken Robert Barnes' fucking advice during jury selection, we wouldn't have a couple of Karens holding up the fucking jury procedures. Deliberation, sorry.
All right. Well, I think we've beat this horse pretty good. And let's just go ahead and go into closing statements. We'll go ahead and start with Chud, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of all broadly agree on the legal aspect of this. There is a separate question of like morality, maybe you could get into, but we didn't really get into that. Yeah, I think that for me, I think it's kind of sad that the state of affairs has got to where it has, where we have a situation where young lads are kind of feeling it necessary to go and patrol the streets in order to keep their community safe. I think the reality, though, if you want to do what came first, the chicken or the egg, because you can say, well, the protesters and the rioters were like responding to Jacob Blake, which was misreported. And whilst I agree with that, I think that there's a direct line that you can trace back to like George Floyd. Like, I don't think this all would have happened the way it did if George Floyd hadn't happened. And that in itself was really bad, and that's indicative of a broader issue with the policing in the United States. I think multiple things can be true. I think we do need to look at the way the police operate and look to change that and remove this institutional racism that exists. I think that also, from a lefty perspective, we need to be more focused in how we're directing our energy. Listless, rootless violence isn't really the solution and isn't moving us forward. You need better organised, better disciplined groups that are pushing things forward. And yeah, the final thing is, I think having to rely on like rightoid militias to like police the city probably isn't a good idea. And yeah, the state should do more to ensure peace in our communities. I don't know. That's it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and throw it over to Scott.
Yeah, so I would like to just kind of reiterate that I think this case is far more about prosecutorial misconduct than it is about anything else. I do agree that the culture war kind of being involved in this case is unfortunate, but I hope that what we can bring from this is hopefully the right wing individuals in this country will kind of wake up to how prosecutors, are so negligent in their jobs and how they often twist and bend the rules in cases. Obviously, I don't agree with BLM and Antifa burning down people's property. If you're going to burn down something, burn down a fucking courthouse in a video game. That being said, throwing that out there. That being said, I think in closing, since I've kind of brought up so many facts of the case and stuff like that, obviously the defense is fucking incompetent. They're horrible at objecting. They're horrible at writing drafts, and they should have taken fucking Robert Barnes's advice on jury selection. We wouldn't be having this fucking problem. More so though, I just want to leave it with one kind of statement, and I want everyone to know, like, let's be honest when you ask yourself, who do you want in your corner when shit goes down? Because we brought about the idea that this is a 17-year-old kid and that, like, that's part of the fucking problem. But what I want to say is this. If you had to choose between 4 Doors, More Whores or Fluffer Boy 2004, I think we all know you'd be choosing 4 Doors, More Whores.
Wait, what's the reference to? Hold on, I don't know. I need to know what the 4 Doors More Whores thing is. That like his
4 Doors More Whores was.
Look it up. Let him find it. Let him find it.
No,
Please,
you can find both of them.
Please, it'll be better. It'll be better.
Oh my God.
Just find it yourself, okay, buddy? Let's go.
Sounds like a reference to More Plates, More Dates.
We're gonna throw it over to CTV. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I think that if you're going to have a meme and somebody on the panel has a question about it, you should probably explain it at a minimum, but maybe that's just me. Now,
is it just a car thing?
Wait a minute. Hold on.
This is more fun this way. Sorry, CTV, go ahead.
My goodness. Where's the discipline, folks? Anyway, now, there was a lot of facts that were being put out about the case tonight, and it's important to understand that from all of them, that Kyle Rittenhouse defended himself whenever somebody attempted to take his rifle, hit him over the head with a skateboard, and pointed a gun at him. And in all 3 cases, that young man showed excellent, and I mean excellent, rifle control and trigger discipline when it comes to attempting to thwart the threats that were being directed at him. And frankly, I don't know that I could ask anything of any other person in the entire world, right? than to exercise the kind of trigger discipline that I saw on that day through all the video footage that was presented. And if this thing ends up with anything other than not guilty, it's gonna really like it's gonna throw a monkey wrench, if you will, into say like the level of thinking that the common everyday American, at least in Wisconsin or in Kenosha, has, considering that's where the jurors were drawn from, right? When it comes to this case. So yeah.
Okay, Dylan Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, honest to God, I didn't really give a flying fuck about this topic. I don't know if you guys could tell.
Damn.
It's kind of one of the lamest topics. I'm just excited for the next topic, which is the infrastructure bill. It's the main reason why I'm here. I heard infrastructure bill and I went, oh shit, time to talk about my one of my policies that I like oh so much. So we'll be talking about that next. Very excited about that. And I think I'll just wrap this up real quick.
Okay, so then yeah, we'll throw it over to Tiberius. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah. So largely we all agreed, so I didn't get it. There wasn't much to fight about, so I didn't really talk about it. But I think there was some meta ethics we could have tapped into, but Fabian was just going to kick my ass in that regard if we got into it anyway. So here's the thing. The highlight reel that I want to actually give here is that a lot of the left has been pissing me off with this particular topic, and because we didn't have anyone to fight with, I didn't get to shut that shit down. However, in the very next topic is that in the interest of being bipartisan, I'm going to shit on the fucking right all goddamn day because I'm pissed off. So yes, let's get to the next topic.
When are you not?
Okay. And last but not least, wait, did Chud go yet? Am I brain farting again?
Are we doing closing statements? I've already done my closing statement.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, yeah,
Xander.
so I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, Xanderhal, and Xanderhal has to leave too, so make sure you plug yourself as well.
Yes, unfortunately, I have to leave a little bit early, but I've had a very fun time here, and I really appreciate you all having me on. It's been really nice. It's been a great time. Anyway, closing statement for this. Very tragic that it happened in the first place. Same statement I had about the last topic, but overall, total clusterfuck, and the left needs to stop pushing the super anti Kyle Rittenhouse thing. The facts of the case just don't line up with the more general left wing perspective on it. And it's making the left look super fucking bad to push super hard for a freshly 18 at the time of the alleged crime committed 17-year-old, to try to send this 17-year-old to prison for a minimum of 60 years on one of the charges. The top charge they were pushing is a 60-year maximum, right? How many years up to is Kyle looking at? Over longer than a human being has ever survived for. I think he had more years on the table to have faced. Was he likely to ever face that many years? Probably not, but still, the fact the left has pushed so hard to send this 17, 18-year-old to life in prison for a case where the evidence very strongly suggests self-defense is ridiculous to me, and they need to stop. And the memes of Kyle Rittenhouse, talking about Kyle Rittenhouse getting raped in prison and stuff like that, all that shit needs to stop. The left needs to stop that. And it's absolutely disgusting. Terrible optics. It's got to get rid of that.
All right, and yeah, go ahead and shout yourself out and tell people where they can find you.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Xanderhal, Xanderhal. You can find me on YouTube, Twitch, and my website, xanderhal.com/live. And if you're interested in politics, mostly left-leaning politics and drama, you can come watch me and have a good time.
All right, man. Well, thanks for being here.
Have a good one.
All right, catch you later.
See ya.
See you, Xanderhal.
All
And
righty.
Nacho.
Yes.
Well, something that Xanderhal said spoke to me, right, about the memes. And when they had the meme about Kyle crying on the stand, something that's very near and dear to my heart, considering the last year of me even participating on these panels, is PTSD. Dude, that spoke to me of a PTSD reaction to what it is that he was trying to describe there on the stand, and it wasn't something to be made fun of. And anyway, that's just what I had.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so the next topic is the infrastructure bill, and there's a lot of different places to go here. Obviously, something that Tiberius brought up is something that I also wanted to touch on as part of the topic, was that we had 13 Republicans that voted for this, and we had a lot of pushback from the right and from Republicans being against this, and a lot of misunderstanding, and myself included. Whenever this bill came out, I didn't at first. Obviously, you don't know what's being put on the table. There's just a lot of what's being talked about. But once the bills actually started to come out, basically, I think what's happened here is another a situation of the divided media and the two parties basically being at odds with each other for something that we should probably all get along with. So how do we bridge this kind of divide? How do we bring people into the fold when it is something that can benefit us all, and things of that nature? So yeah, let's kick it off right there with Tiberius. Go ahead.
Yeah, long story short for me, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty details. The Republicans just cleaned house on this bill. This was originally going to be the Build Back Better and the infrastructure bill all put together into one, and it was going to be something, if the progressives got their way, it was going to be $6 trillion. Now, if you want that, that's part of your politics. I'm not going there. The Republicans walked that back. It was going to be 3.5, then it was going to be 2.9, and then between not even really being in the conversation and letting the mod Dems versus the progressives have it out, the Republicans got exactly what they wanted out of the bipartisan compromise bill. And then when it came up to a fucking vote, they didn't even sign on to the damn thing. What the actual fuck are we doing in this country? So yes, I'm a little pissed off because I want to be a Republican. I want to sign on for a party that gets some fucking shit done. And they just cleaned house, but then when it actually came time to man up and be like, hey, you know what? We had a bipartisan deal. We got 90% of what we fucking wanted. Let's go. We're here for the American people. They didn't show up because of partisanship. Fuck this.
Okay, Dylan Valley, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to make my opening statement about the positive ramifications of the Build Back Better framework. Specifically, one of the most, one of the greatest efforts being to bring down costs and strengthen the middle class, in a long time since the New Deal. A huge expansion of affordable health care. Again, with some of the biggest investments in children's futures in history. And these are the kind of things I wanted to talk about on this subject, because every time it comes time to talk about this, which we've done multiple times on the Octagon, right? We've had this as a subject before, and I've been on panels where I've talked about this. No one ever seems to want to get into the nitty-gritty about what actual positive ramifications are going to come from these types of investments into the American economy. And what they're going to do here is basically sort of expect huge returns by investing into their economy. I guess it would be like a super dumbed down version of Keynesian economics in a weird way. That's how I would like to think of this. I feel like that's what they're engaging in here a little bit, because of the way the spending is going to affect the economy and its effects on output, employment, inflation are all going to correlate in terms of this kind of thing. But, I don't know. I want to hear everyone's thoughts on this eventually. I'd like to hear some of the more right-leaning perspectives on whether this is going to be a good thing or not.
Okay, Fabian Liberty, go ahead.
Yeah, so apparently I'm going to end up disagreeing with everybody. I think that this is rampant government spending that is out of fucking control and is absurd that conservatives even negotiated with this at all. But of course, that's what Republicans do, right? Republicans are just progressives moving the speed limit. It's absolute, like, we are facing a debt crisis that is going to ruin this fucking country. And it's not discretionary spending, and it's not the military budget, right? 77% of the growing debt that we have is mandatory spending from Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And the CBO's own numbers before we did this bill and before we had the COVID situation going on, showing us that by like 2050, we're going to be, what is it? Sorry, I got notes right here. $121 trillion in debt. That's if we don't change anything, right? And so the idea that we can just believe in this post-Keynesian modern monetary theory is just completely fucking insane and is not based on any economic standards. And if you want a very, very left-wing economic opinion on this, even Paul Krugman, who's a Nobel Prize winning economist, who's a left-wing economist that set out and won the Nobel Prize trying to prove with, I would say, junk economics, in my opinion, even, that minimum wage has literally no effect on unemployment. Like, that's how left-wing this guy is. He still is coming out saying that this is incredibly dangerous, the amount of government spending, and that we have to do something in order to make Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid solvent. And if we don't do something, we keep spending money like this, we're going to be in serious fucking problems. And so I don't care if it's just 1.2 trillion instead of the 3.5 trillion or the 6 trillion, right? When we have over $7 trillion in foreign debt, and I'll explain why that's important later, like, we have a serious fucking problem with our spending. And the idea that Republicans and Democrats both think that we can spend our way out of problems with taxes instead of opening up the market and allowing infrastructure to be built by the free market is a serious fucking problem. And I have plenty more to say on this.
All right. Well, go ahead and throw it over to CTV.
Well, I think it's always important to make sure a conservative goes after the ANCAP because, they're a little fucking crazy over on that side of the fence. But, however,
You got to convert him. That's all.
he's not fucking completely wrong when it comes to the amount of money that's being spent. I just want to take some time here to read the first 7 bullet points because, again, remember at the beginning of the conversation, I didn't get given the topics ahead of time, so we are working on the fly. So, these seven bullet points to get pointed out, and I'll make sure to drop this. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give this specifically to American Nacho so that he can make sure it goes to where it goes. I'm going to make sure I put it in my chat so that it is understood in my chat as well. So here are the 7 bullet points from the 117th Congress that decided that it's going to be voting on this thing. Extends the FY 2021 enacted levels through FY 2022, right, for federal aid, highway, transit, and safety programs. Now, this speaks to me of Congress's responsibility to build and maintain post roads. Fair enough, right? Reauthorizes an FY, for everybody that doesn't know, I think speaks to me of fiscal year, FISCAL, fiscal year. Everybody agree? Okay, outstanding. 2023 to 2026, several surface transportation programs, including the federal aid highway program, transit programs, highway safety, motor carrier safety, and rail programs. That's the second bullet point. The third one is addresses climate change. How in the fuck did we get into climate change? But okay, here we go. Including strategies to reduce the climate change impacts on the surface transportation system and a vulnerability assessment to identify opportunities to enhance the resilience of surface transportation systems to ensure the efficient use of federal resources. Now, what does this speak to me of? Well, it speaks to me of a lot more federal regulation when it comes to the production of motor vehicles and them forcing, right, probably electric vehicles on the American populace, which is no fucking different, right, than what happened back in 2008. What happened back in 2008, folks? Obama decided to put in this fucking cash for clunkers program, and what did it do? It killed the aftermarket parts market for vehicles that were already out on the road. It fucking absolutely decimated the fucking market. And the American people need to be aware that it decimated the fucking market, because whether or not you know a fucking thing about vehicles doesn't actually fucking matter when it comes to the amount of parts that are available for vehicles. And if you allow the federal government to force electric vehicles onto us, you're going to encounter the same fucking problem, and we don't need that fucking issue. Fourth fucking bullet point, revises Buy America procurement requirements for highways, mass transit, rail. Fifth one, establishes a rebuild rural bridges program to improve the safety and state of good repair of bridges in rural communities. Now, what I'll speak to this about is specifically that there are a lot of bridges that have problems here in the country. There's been quite a few studies and quite a few people that have went out and actually tested these things to know that they're just like that bridge that happened in Wisconsin, right? I think it was in
Listen.
Minneapolis where we had that one bridge collapse. It was just a few years ago, right? So this is.
I'm gonna keep it a buck 50 with you. I'm gonna keep it a quid 12 with you. I don't know anything about this. I've not looked into it. I don't fucking know anything about it. I am clueless in all this, okay? It is the most boring shit I can imagine. I only came on because the other two topics were interesting, but this, no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. Mucho texto. I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you though, or sorry it happened. That's it.
National motor vehicle per mile user fee. And what is a fee? A fee.
Wait, is this still opening statements?
Yeah,
What the fuck's
we're
going
gonna have to
on?
wrap it up here.
I'm on the last fucking part of this thing, Chud.
You've been talking for like 5 minutes.
Okay.
What the
You can't
fuck?
fucking relax for just a minute, Chud. I don't know what to tell you, bro, but the reality situation is that I got to get through this, and I'm almost done. And look, you've done wasted another 20 fucking seconds with me addressing your
You
ass.
should become
So,
a
like, here we go.
politician. Your filibustering would be legendary.
All right.
I know it is legendary. Everything about me is legendary, including, right, the size of what?
Oh my god,
Conversa-
shut up, dude.
What? The conversation that I bring to the thing is still open to statement. Now,
Okay.
a pilot
Just more
program
proof
to
that
channel-
CTV is 14 years old.
Just channel your inner destiny and try to speed it out. Okay.
I'm trying to. That's why I sent the link to everybody. You'd know I was on the last line if you'd let me finish. Jesus Christ, I could have been finished by now if you just would have let me finish. Okay, here we go. Now, directs the Department of Transportation to establish a pilot program to demonstrate a national motor vehicle per mile user fee to restore and maintain the long-term solvency of the Highway Trust Fund, which is no different than this Social Security that never should have been allowed to begin with, and achieve and maintain a state of good repair in the surface of transportation system. Now, while on its surface it may seem like a good idea, but the fact of the matter is it is a bad fucking idea, and we don't need to be allowing such a huge amount of spending to happen here.
All right.
Thank God.
Go ahead, Chud.
Okay, listen. I'm going to keep it real with you all, okay? I ain't fucking read this bill. I won't read it. It's boring ass shit, okay? I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't know anything about the infrastructure bill. The other two topics are of interest to me. I don't really spend much time on this. I'm going to keep it level with you, okay? All I will say is this more broadly.
Hope you do, because you interrupted me, now I'm interrupting you.
Hey, come on.
Okay.
Man.
Listen. Fucking hell, you've not spoke for long enough, Jesus. Okay, it's really simple, okay? The Democrats were put into office with a mandate to fucking sort shit out, okay? Now, the problem you've got is you've obviously got the midterms coming up next year. I know the electoids love to fucking talk about when the next election is. Have they done enough? Is this enough? Is this sufficient? There's a number of policies Biden promised would happen while he was in office that haven't happened. Is this enough to kind of placate that? I honestly don't know because I've not read it. But that's the question I think that's important here, you know. And I think that you know, if this isn't sufficient and they haven't done enough, then they're going to get absolutely routed in 2022, and they've only got themselves to blame. That's it.
All right. And last but not least, the leftist owl. And also go ahead and introduce yourself as well.
I'm the leftist owl. I do political streams and sometimes drum streams. You can find me at twitch.tv/theLeftistOwl. So I don't know much about the infrastructure bill either, but I think broadly infrastructure spending is usually a good thing. We need to upkeep our roads, our bridges, et cetera, But I think I do kind of agree with CTV that like taxing people on the amount they drive and like trying to do like this payback program for cars and trying to get people in electric vehicles isn't going to solve the climate crisis. It's not going to address the things that we need to address to solve climate change. Investing more in public transportation and having a more robust public transportation system will go leagues beyond than just getting people to buy electric cars or electric vehicles. Not only that, it could also help us socially. there have been a lot of studies to suggest that suburbs, are terrible for mental health. Having a community that's walkable, that you can, walk in and out of stores, go back to your house, et cetera, have a lot better impact on people's mental health, a lot more positive, feedback for them. But in regards to this specific infrastructure bill, I think a lot of the things it sets out to do are very, very good. I think that being able to upkeep our country is an important thing that we need to do, and I don't necessarily see it as like an overreach of spending. If we really want to look at an overreach of spending, we should probably look more towards our military budget than anything else, because we spend more than like the next 15 countries. And I think that concludes my opening statement.
Okay. All right. And then also thank you for filling in. And yeah, the floor is open.
Yeah, I want to address Scott and to a little bit Dylan. And so, Scott, first one is that I largely agree with you on debt, right? We spend. And if you believe in even the most basic economic structures, you can't do this forever.
Even if you're a Keynesian, you can't have a debt to GDP ratio as high as we're going.
Yeah, and the last time that we pulled something like this, or I'm sorry, the last time that we even pulled a balanced budget was freaking 2000, right? Let's put our shit together. Now, here's the part where I piss off usually everyone, and this is kind of a rebuttal to Dylan, is that I hate soft.
Let me give you a fuck you ahead of time. How's that?
Whatever. Anyway, okay, so I hate sock dims because they want to spend money on a bunch of shit that has no ROI and builds out people to be productive citizens. I get the altruism that you want to help people, but just spending money on problems doesn't do that. Infrastructure does. Okay, and one of the big things that I piss off everybody with this particular take is, yes, I want pre-K through post-grad education. Yes, I want.
What does that have to do with roads?
It'll have a lot to do with it if you listen. Shut up for a minute.
I'm trying to, but it's pre-K, and it's not fucking roads that I can drive on in my fucking 2019 Mustang
CTV,
convertible,
your fucking
right?
Ass. I'm tired of your fucking bullshit.
Hey,
You're doing a fucking theater, dude. All right, so
Mute me, I don't give a fuck.
This is where I need to address this. This is where I get pissed off with sock dims. We have a huge social program, the biggest in the world. It's called Social Security. It doesn't fucking work. It doesn't invest in people. So let's take that money and put it into our infrastructure. Let's put it into our education, and let's put it into our healthcare, because that does fucking work. And that's where I don't agree with Scott on anything, is because I still do believe in government. I believe that things can help people, and we can build institutions that do work. But this one isn't one of them.
All right. Well, since you believe in government so much, let's actually get into the bill, right? Let's actually talk about some of the things and show you why you shouldn't fucking trust your goddamn government. Does anybody here know about Amtrak, right?
Yes.
You know that Amtrak is a nationalized company, right?
Yes.
Right? It was established in 1971, and the government owns it. So please explain to me how it's a good thing that we're paying $65 billion in taxpayer funds to support a company that's owned by the government that's supposed to be turning a profit. Well, it's not turning a profit, and we're going to build infrastructure. So we're taking our tax money and giving it to corporations that are owned by the state. This is like the worst of socialism.
Hold on.
Proving
and
that
politicians,
I got a legitimate question for you. How many people have traveled on these particular railways? How many people? You would argue about fucking profit when and in fact, if it's being funded by the government, I would assume that it has to do with the number of people that have traveled on it. So how many people have traveled on the fucking railway? How many?
I don't know. Google it. It seems to be your answer to everything else on this panel.
Why are you arguing the fucking point?
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of every single fact.
Well, you should be aware of it if you're arguing the fucking point, because the fact of the matter is that if there is federal fucking funding going to a particular thing,
literally just Google the fucking HR bill and let off a fucking bullet.
What did you expect from CTV?
If there is federal funding
all right, so,
going towards a particular thing, then you should know know.
No, I'm not dealing with the shit. I'm done.
You should know.
It messes up the whole flow of the rest of the
A
conversation.
steel cage match,
Okay.
me and fucking Fabian. I've had enough of this shit.
Okay, you're called out. The steel cage match. All right, give me 2 seconds. Let me grab this.
All right, let's go. Let's listen to CTV
Okay.
yell for 5 minutes.
All right, your time starts now. Go ahead. It's just you.
Yeah,
two.
we don't need to listen to me yell, right? I just need to fucking like speak over Tiberius, who had like nothing to actually add to the conversation when we're talking about federal money that gets spent, right? Federal money that gets spent on a particular program. How many people are traveling on this particular railway? Now, I don't know the answer, but if you're
So why are
asserting,
you yelling at me for not knowing the
because if
answer?
you're asserting the fucking point of you having a problem with the money being spent for it, then you should be aware of the number of people that travel on this railway. Because the fact of the matter is that I can only,
All right.
and
me
I can
explain this to
only,
you then.
slow
explain
down,
this to
slow
you.
down. We got 5 fucking minutes. It's just you and me, so slow down, right?
How many
I
bullet
can-
points you got?
Oh,
Let's go.
Jesus Christ. I can only assume, right, that the reason why this money is being spent is to try to make it better for poorer people, which frankly I'm one of, and frankly, so are you and everyone else on this panel, right, to be able to travel on Amtrak. So how many people? And if you don't know, then attempt to justify, right, why it is that you have like this example to show.
Okay, the reason I have this example to show is that Amtrak's not free. People have to pay to use it, right? It's a service. More importantly, there are people that don't use Amtrak. And those people are having their tax money taken away for a company that is supposed to run on a profit and be able to balance itself. Instead, the government is so piss poor at managing things that it has to steal money from taxpayers, $65 billion worth, because this is an unprofitable company because it's run like shit. And this is the problem with nationalizing companies, right? Is that what ends up happening is that the state doesn't run it because it doesn't have a profit motive or an incentive in order to actually be run effectively, because it knows that it will get bailed out or that it will be able to use taxpayer funds to be able to fix its problems no matter what it does. Right? One of the reasons why we have such shit trains in this country is, to be fair, the sheer size of our country compared to other European nations. But one of the other reasons is because we have a nationalized train system that's run like shit. And this is one of many instances of pork barreling and fucked up things that are involved in this bill that I wanted to discuss, is the fact that we have a nationalized socialist system where we're stealing taxpayer money so that we can give it to Amtrak, and it's bullshit. And also, people own stock in Amtrak, which is even worse.
Okay, so we've gone all the way through this thing, but I just really quickly type in a Google search of what the trans routes are for Amtrak, and it appears, right, and again, I didn't proclaim myself as an expert on the topic to begin with. There are 35, count them, 35 different routes that they provide, right? So then my question to you, since you are proclaiming yourself to be an expert on Amtrak, is
I didn't
what is
proclaim
the
myself to be an expert on
Well,
Amtrak. Don't put words in my mouth.
Okay, so you're asserting the point that Amtrak is completely a bad fucking thing, right? So then I would want you to
on
know,
principle.
right, on principle, but on principle you would still need to justify where that's coming from. So from here, I would need to know, like, what is the amount of subsidy? Say again?
I said that's not what that means, but continue.
How is that not what that means?
So you don't have to justify from this fucking utilitarian perspective all of these other factors when you dislike something on principle, right? It's wrong and morally unethical on principle because it's a socialist system.
Yeah, but that's where, like, you're not understanding of, like, how any of these things are set up end up being the very thing that, like, crushes you in your own arguments. Because,
What's crushing me in my own argument? The
because,
fact
like,
that there's a lot of train rails, so?
what is it that you think that train rails end up doing?
Are you serious right now? Is that the question you have for me? Like, I disagree with Amtrak.
I'm just
because it's a-
wondering at what point where, like, we can get to the higher level of conversation and I don't having to keep backing it up to, like, the bare minimum of basics. So yes, I have to ask
you're
the
backing
bare
it up to
minimum
bare
of
minimum
questions.
basics because you
I
don't-
have to. I have to.
You have no. Oh my god, this is so annoying. Like
I know it's annoying. I'm the one asking the fucking question. I'm annoyed out of my fucking mind because we're in a fucking steel chair because I asked the fucking question and you don't have the answers to it because you asserted a fucking point. That's why we're here
You don't know what a
in the
principle is.
fucking steel cage where you
don't
can't
know what a
fucking
principle
escape,
is.
and what you have to do is address what's being asked. So please explain to me, how we end up at the point where you think $65 million in
billion
being get 65 billion correction
Alrighty
billion.
then. All right, we're all done with the cage match. Everybody is able to speak again now. Okay,
Yay,
everybody
thank
jump
God he
in.
went. He unmuted me first, which means I'm going to talk about the
Sure, go ahead.
utilitarian philosophy shit now.
Oh,
Just
God,
because
let's
go.
Everyone's able to jump in. You can piggyback off of what they were saying.
Yeah.
You can talk about whatever.
I still
you
want to address what I had with Fabian, but I guess I gotta wait for him.
Yeah,
I gotta wait 3 minutes for him. So
you gotta wait for him. Besides, I haven't had like any time to talk during this panel, so like I just want to throw things out there now.
Go
into
for it.
the wind. Thank God. So I'm going to talk about the positive correlations between reducing wealth inequality, which the Build Back Better plan aims to do by introducing things like a child tax credit and narrowing the gap and having access to things like post-secondary education and high-paying job training, which is what this program helps people get. And I think that there's nothing but absolute utility that comes from this bill, other than in some things where my biggest disagreements lie in the bill is mostly on the front of the climate change plans, because I believe in nuclear power as opposed to them just coming out here and building a bunch of like renewables that haven't really been, proven to be strong enough to maintain a country's grids. So I will say I'm not a big fan of that. However, all things considered, there's so much types of, again, like spending that this bill is going to provide that the country is desperately in need of. And I, as someone who ascribes to this utilitarian philosophy that was so shit on earlier, I'm going to come out and say it. Yes, I believe that there's absolute positives that come from using taxes to fund programs and social safety programs for people. Yes, this type of spending does help people. It is a net positive. It makes the world a better place, okay? We have people who are raised from poverty, and as a government, the thing the government should be doing the most is enacting the will of its people and living out the interests of its constituents. So there I go. I have to say it. I have to come out here. The spending on childcare, the spending on infrastructure, the spending on education, the spending on all of these things are going to be an absolute net positive. And this type of spending is going to have positive ramifications in the economy, the way we see people get better jobs, have access to better paying programs, and things like that. And the fact that we're going to have more educated people and more people out of poverty in a society, which opens up many opportunities in different types of markets, is going to make the country's economy flourish more.
Scott, I want to address you real quick because I had a chance to get into that. Yeah, so like Amtrak, you brought it up. Well, number one, there's a bit of a problem. I've actually been arguing for the privatization of Amtrak for a long time because number one, I think it's a political capture program where it's largely politically popular to keep it going, but it really doesn't solve anything because U.S. is car country. The United States is built for car locomotion and maybe bus, but we don't have mass transit to the way we need it to facilitate trains.
You do understand how that even came into
Oh
fruition,
my
right?
God. I'm not talking to you. Shut the fuck
You
up.
do understand how that came into fruition, right?
Yeah, the interstate program.
Holy shit.
No, not the interstate
No, the
program.
interstate
It has
program.
a
If
lot
you
to
say
do with
anything
the
else, you don't
five
know what the
major
fuck you're
fucking
talking about. Have
corporations
a nice
that
minute,
came
bitch.
into fucking
Fuck.
power back
Okay,
in the day,
anyway.
got
It's not
together
gonna work.
and tore up all the fucking
don't
tracks
okay,
that were running across the country from New
Okay.
York to
I don't have
San
to agree with this
Francisco.
shit.
I know.
Right? And then
CTV.
after they tore up the
CTV.
tracks, they gave us
Anyway,
fucking
Scott,
buses.
what I'm
You
saying
uneducated
is that
fucking
Here's the
hack.
problem.
Okay.
Logan.
Let him
Not
finish
no
his point.
shut
Go ahead.
him.
Go ahead, Tiberius.
Okay, yeah. Here's the part where
Yeah, but you know what? I'm not gonna
Yes,
let
you
you
gotta
finish
let him
because you
finish
didn't
his
let me.
point.
He didn't let me finish my
Yeah,
fucking
anyway.
point.
You interrupted him.
God.
Just
Nacho,
let him finish his
Nacho,
point, and then you can respond. Let him
You
respond.
actually shut him the fuck
Let
up, please.
stop.
Scott,
Everybody
no,
stop.
what?
Everybody stop.
Jesus
Please
Christ!
let Tiberius finish his point, and then TTV you can respond. Okay.
I
Please.
thought you said interrupting was
so-
allowed.
where I wanted to get
It
into.
is, but once everybody's talking at
Okay,
once, I
right.
have to I have to move the conversation
Kyle
along.
wants to go against Destiny.
So then let me
That's
say my
hilarious.
point.
You're
and then
forcing me. You're forcing me to hold hands here. Okay, this is the octagon. All right, let Tiberius
it's the octagon
make his
where
point.
truth should be fucking
Let-
spoken, and then
Sure,
as soon as the
but-
sun, I'm just
Right,
saying.
you're censoring Tiberius right now. Okay, let
There's
us speak,
60
and then you can
fucking
speak.
years of history he's fucking forgetting before
well,
we
then
ever
tell
got to
him
what he
after.
addressed.
Wait, just tell him after. Okay, just
The truth is
Bro,
that you need to shut
let
the
him finish
fuck
his
up.
point. Stop.
Please.
Stop.
Okay.
Tiberius, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, here's the problem. Some of the routes that Amtrak runs are profitable. Now, most of the ones that are profitable are the ones that the company owns, and that's part of ridershare. The other side of that is that particularly the Acceler Express is incredibly popular, incredibly profitable, and I would 100% love to see that as its own company. If the government wants to run it, great. I don't think it needs to, and it really shouldn't. It would actually help to have that as a high-speed rail corridor, which the Northeast Corridor really wants. And you know what? If I have to give up $80 billion for the Dems to have that, I'll trade that. If I get $80 billion into the infrastructure that I need of Interstates 57, 69, and 49 throughout the Midwest, I absolutely will take that trade.
Right. So long as the government spends money for other people, you can get them to spend money for you, and we can just continue spending money on all kinds of things. Like you see the problem here, right? Like you basically just argued for pork barreling. You basically just
I have
argued.
no problem with pork barreling. That's called compromise. That's what I expect.
That's not. I
And
mean,
that's exactly why I was pointing out the thing that I was pointing out before you decided to just talk over me instead of listening to the point that needed to be
No,
fucking
dude,
made.
you have shown me nothing but the most blatant fucking disrespect to not only me, but people on this panel by yelling over them constantly, dude. You know I like you. You know I respect you. I have problems with you at time to time, but you've been a complete fucking dickhead this whole damn panel, and I'm pissed off with it. And I'm
The
done with it.
reality is that I'm the only one holding my fucking point of view, and that every single time that one of you sons of bitches decide to start over talking me whenever interrupting is allowed by the fucking rules of the fucking panel, and that you decide that you don't want to argue against the fucking point because you're too fucking weak to argue against it, that's your fucking problem. That's not my fucking problem. And
Dude,
that
you need
right
to get
there's
over
the
this
reality of the
insecurity complex
situation.
real bad, dude. I have been respectful to Fabian. I've been respectful to every person on this panel, and I've shown you restraint and leniency. But I'm done. You need to get over this.
Your
This isn't you
restraint and
problem.
leniency. If you feel like you can argue over me, and if you feel like you can yell over me, then by God, let's fucking go, Tiberius. I ain't scared of nobody on this fucking platform. I don't give a fuck what their following is. You got that?
You clearly
Well, you
are scared
should
of
be.
everybody.
Good, I'm glad you got that.
You should
CTV,
be scared
you
of
need to
people
speak
because you're
up.
fucking brain dead, dude. Like, how? Holy shit! How the fuck does
I don't even
this?
know
how
why
do-
the bother you're fucking speaking whenever your fucking camera is so fucking tiny that it shows just like a little bit of you and like the majority of your back fucking
speaking
room
because-
you
I'm
don't
speaking
understand
because
how
you're
a fucking
retarded.
zoom on a camera works, right?
I'm speaking because you're retarded and you look like a Beverly
Right,
Hills
I'm
Cop
the one that's
extra.
retarded,
That's
and
what
what
I'm
have you done in your
talking
fucking
about.
life? Not a fucking thing. You haven't done a fucking thing in your fucking life, and you're sitting here on this panel at 20-something fucking years old, thinking that you can speak about Marxist fucking values when all you did was read it in a fucking book, and you haven't lived any single one of your fucking values. You want to see yourself talking about shit?
Stop. I'm gonna server mute everybody. Stop.
I'm gonna
Stop.
cage match
I'm gonna
him.
server mute you.
I want a cage match.
Okay, you can have your cage match. I was just gonna interject and say, I don't care about ad homs. Just keep them in the cage match. Okay, go ahead. We'll go ahead and start this now. It's CTV and Dylan Blake. Go ahead.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is CTV wants to claim he is a philosopher of history like we see on his Twitter bio and shit of that nature. But the fact of the matter is he has been the most incorrect person about pretty much everything on this panel this entire night. And I can't help but say
Wait,
this.
we're in the still match, right?
Yes,
we're in
we're
the
in
still
the-
match. Okay, good. So then we'll address the point that Tiberius D made to begin with, which was the fact that the reason why we ended up in this situation to begin with is because the government allowed, right, the buying of the corporations that were, in fact, the train fucking stations that had the lines running from New York to fucking California that allowed for a person to jump on a trolley and go cross fucking country to allow, right,
No one's
companies like
talking about the train.
to
No
allow
one gives a fuck
company.
about the train,
I know
CJ.
nobody's talking about trains. We're talking about buses, which is the next fucking point. You fucking dimwit. So
No
when they
one gives a
allowed
fuck
the
about that
buying
shit.
of the
We're here to
fucking
talk about how
buses,
retarded
no,
you
when they
are.
tore up the fucking fucking tracks,
because you're
and then
having
they
an
started building the
aneurysm.
fucking roses. They
CTV.
started giving us
Do I need
fucking
to take you to a
buses in
hospital?
order to cart
Do I need
people
to take you to a
across the
hospital?
fucking
This is a
country,
yes or no
and that's
question.
exactly what ended up us in the situation that we are in now, because you don't understand that history, and neither did Tiberius D. Whenever I was attempting to point that shit out to begin with,
No one
that's
gives a
how we
fuck
ended up
about
in the
this history
situation
that
that we're
you're
in
talking
now.
about, because all
the
you've been
tracks
doing-
were already on the fucking ground.
No, because you've been on this panel this whole time over talking and disrespecting everybody when you're sitting there literally wearing aviators looking like a goddamn schizophrenic Tom Selleck, okay? That's why the fuck I'm talking to you right now. Because you've been annoying the fuck out of everyone.
Looking like a
all night
schizophrenic
long.
Tom Selleck.
Yes,
Nice.
a schizophrenic Tom Selleck.
That's all you got,
exactly
though?
what the
Is that all you got? Tom Selleck had short fucking hair. Don't you know anything about Tom Selleck?
I know Tom Selleck wasn't as schizophrenic as you, to say
Right,
the
and
least.
you don't know fuck all about Tom Selleck, right? All you know
I
is
know.
that like maybe he had a mustache, but he had short fucking hair. That's all you fucking know, and you want to
Look,
use that as
everyone
a
else here
reference
is
to try to talk
laughing,
shit
like,
about me, right?
yes,
And the reality situation is
talking
that
shit about
everybody's
you is
laughing
so
about you
easy.
because
No,
you don't know
talking shit
fuck all
about you-
about Tom
talking-
Selleck.
Talking
It's
shit
re-
about
it's
you is
silly.
so easy. That's why I'm doing
And
it.
he
because
didn't
you
have
are
a
so-
goatee. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I'm going
Make
to
a correlation
continue
that makes
harassing-
sense. How about you start learning what the zoom on your camera is first,
How
right?
about you
Zoom
take
in a little
the
bit closer.
aviators and you
That
look me
way
in
we
the
can
eye,
see
old
just
man.
how
You
young
look me
you
in the
are.
eye. Take
And
the aviators off and look me in the eye. Look me in the eye.
I
Take
have
the aviators off.
the
There we go.
aviators ain't a fucking problem, and believe me,
Take
if
'em
you
off.
see my
Look at
fucking
me.
eyes, you'll see just how fucking serious I am. The reality situation is that you don't know fuck all because you're 20-something years old and you don't know enough history to be able to keep up with me. The reality situation is that the majority of fucking railroad tracks that were in this
Nobody
country
cares
were
about
torn up
railroad
by
tracks.
5 major fucking
Nobody
corporations,
cares about
one of them
railroad
being
tracks, I'm
fucking
gonna tell you
Mac.
again,
And when they
CTV.
did that, right, that's when they started giving us, the American people, motherfucking buses, right, which only accelerated the climate change fucking problem that you on the left would fucking talk about, because you didn't understand then, right, that allowing fucking corporations into the government to the degree that they are now would lead to the very fucking problems that we have. And that's your fucking problem, because it's your ancestors that are on the left that allowed to the creation of this shit, and you're the fucking problem.
Wow, somebody's having an absolute schizoid episode when we can solve the problem with nuclear power. But go off, King.
You're
Jesus
damn right,
Christ.
and I hope you fucking take a knee whenever you fucking say that.
I'm not taking a goddamn knee for
All
you.
right, we're fucking done with this asshole. Nacho,
No,
take
no.
it away.
No.
We're fucking done.
See, you're
We're
not
fucking
done.
done.
No.
We're fucking
got-
done, because
we got
I
a minute left in here, buddy.
You're
we got
stuck
a
in
minute
the
left
cage with me,
because I
big
got a
boss.
minute to be able to, for me to be able to fucking talk. So the reality situation is that Dylan Blake ain't got a fucking thing to say that's fucking useful, right? Tiberius D has made some good fucking points, even though he decided to get fucking sidetracked, right? And a whole fucking other thing. Fabian has made some good fucking points when it comes to the expansion of fucking governments, right? Leftist
but the
Al, I
fact of
haven't
the
heard. I
matter is
haven't heard. Jesus
I'm
Christ, why? I
talking
don't even
over
know why
you.
the bother your
Over you
fucking
right
mother
now.
and speak. You
I'm
ain't got a
going to
fucking
talk over
interesting
you
thing to
right
say at
now.
all. We can
I'm
keep
way
fucking
more
going.
interesting than
Because
you.
the
I'm way
reality
more
is
handsome
that
than you, and
leftist
I'm
Al
way cooler
has,
than you. I am
without saying
so
a fucking
pretty.
word, has
I am
made
so
better
pretty
fucking points
compared
than
to
you
you,
have,
CTV.
right? And Chud Logic,
so
who I
pretty.
know, has not said one fucking thing throughout this entire fucking panel, has made a better point than you have, bothering to put CTV in a fucking steel chair, and I don't even know why the fuck you thought you were going to be able to hold on in a
I'm
fucking steel
holding
cage
on
with me.
way better
Right?
than you.
You better hold on with a whole.
All right, Schizo Tom Selleck, calm down.
Alrighty then. Okay. Well, that was pretty fun. We got way off topic, but hopefully we can bring it back around. Yeah, the floor is open again. Sorry, let me unmute everybody. Okay, yeah.
Okay, Fabian, or sorry, Scott. Last I was addressing you. I think that you raised some points. There's parts where I agree with you, right? Fiscal responsibility on the right, I'm 100% with, even though they're kind of walking away from that, which we probably agree on.
I mean, the
is
Tea
about
Party. The Tea Party was like the last bastion of fiscal responsibility, and that shit got bought out by the Koch brothers faster than you could say, fucking Monopoly. Right. I don't know what is it when you go around Monopoly.
Around it.
Yeah, what is it like? You go straight to. I can't remember.
I was gonna say, like,
Meme's gone. Judd, help me out. I need a memester.
Oh, sorry. Wait, what? What's going on? I'm sorry.
Exactly, right?
Come on,
All
Judd.
right. So,
My brain's been melted.
Do
Sorry.
not passcode. Do not collect $200.
Yes.
The Koch brothers bought out the Tea Party. There we go.
okay. So anyway, like that's the part we agree on. Now the other part of this is that I think there are serious things that we can spend money on that really help people. Number one is infrastructure, getting people from A to B, because one of the most expensive things to a whole society is a fucking stoplight. Because even though you're not paying it up front with the stoplight, is that every time you start and stop, every time that you have to come to ground zero, is that is a cost on the consumer and the people who are going from A to B. That is why freeways, even though they're expensive as hell, are actually cheaper in the long run.
Right, but see, the problem with your argument here, right,
Okay.
is that you're arguing that money being spent on things is good, but you're not engaging with the issue of the state using tax dollars to spend the money on these things, right? What you're saying is like, oh, education helps. Yeah, education does help, but there are a lot of solutions that the free market can do. Also, in terms of the Amtrak situation, right? Because like we got distracted. One of many things I just wanted to bring up. I almost feel bad for researching this topic given the way it's gone, but right, Amtrak is a profitable company, but the state owns the preferred stock. There's something really wrong with the state using tax dollars, right, to then fund something in the hopes that the preferred stock then goes back to the state. Like, if that doesn't work out, then it just becomes a waste of taxpayer dollars, right? Like, so, like, there's a lot of issues here. I think the other issue that I really wanted to bring up is this is a part of the bill that's really interesting. Quote, so I'm quoting from Wall Street Journal here, right? It also includes a provision that would require employers benefiting from the plan's investments, quote, to follow strong labor standards and remain neutral when their employees seek to organize a union and bargain collectively. Now, I am all for unions. I believe unions are a great thing when they happen naturally. But the problem is that the state, especially the Democratic Party, has created an incestuous relationship with unions in this country. Unions don't do shit for people anymore. You're not seeing wildcat protests. You're not seeing anarchists or Anson movements within the labor union, right? Like the fucking all of those movements are so small compared to these large unions that are basically just wings of the Democratic Party. And what we're doing now is the infrastructure bill is spending trillions of dollars using contracts with companies and is going to require that they are unionized companies. This is just a way, in one of many incestuous ways, for the Democratic Party using their power to ensure that they can pay back the very same organizations that were siphoning money off of people to get them elected. It's fucking corruption at its fucking finest. And there's a ton of issues, but more importantly, we have to tackle the fucking debt. And spending trillions of dollars is not a fucking way to tackle the debt. And I'll leave it at that and let it open up.
I got three things with you real quick. All right. Number one is that I agree with you on, number one, I disagree with you that like government spending bad, but that's just something we're probably going to have to table, right?
Right.
The second part here is this is where like stock doesn't piss me off because, and this is, I think, something where we can actually maybe agree. Return on investment, building things that actually pay back themselves later. Because you know what? Yeah, you're not going to get it in direct incentives. You're not going to get it from direct tax. But when you make an expressway, you're going to see the easing of goods and services, which come back to you as tax revenue sooner or later. And that will pay itself 30 fucking years down the road.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but at the same time, wouldn't that be the same argument that was made probably to begin with Amtrak being made a fucking government-owned corporation? Is that they had to have a certain amount of income to et cetera, in order to justify the amount of money that's being poured into it?
And this is the part where me and Scott agreed, is that this was a political capture operation to where it's politically viable to keep this program going, but it shouldn't be because it's insolvent. It doesn't work. And I would say you can even sell it. You can actually have private investors run the son of a bitch. And for what Amtrak actually owns, that actually is profitable. That can be a viable company that can work today if they actually just cut the fat out.
Based. So, I would love to sell Amtrak.
Right. So anyway.
Pay off some debt by selling Amtrak. Let's go.
Okay. So on the other side of this, there was a point 3. I didn't write it down, so I apologize. I believe where I was going with this is that when I got to the ROI thing is that I'm sorry, I did lose my train of thought. Apologize. Fuck. Scott, if you got something for me, that's great. Or if somebody wants to address it with me.
I tell you what. What I'm going to do is.
How about the leftist Al
Hold on.
speak?
I want to hear Tiberius's thought. I genuinely do.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do, right, is to slow things down just a little bit, right? And I know maybe you think that's a little bit uncharacteristic of CTV on a panel. Tiberius, ignore my voice. Think about your point, and like let's recover the information that's been covered, right? First off, let me say that CTV is not for a whole bunch of government control. Definitely not. And
I remember the point.
Go ahead.
Unions. Unions. I'm pro-union, same as you are.
I'm
get
pro-union too.
Yeah,
but
yeah, right. I
not
get it.
this shit.
So there's a level where politics gets on it, and if you want to call it corruption, what the Democrats are doing right now with green energy may be one of the biggest corruption scandals in human history if they don't get it to pay off. Because right now, most of it isn't fucking solvent. Wind energy's getting there. Solar energy is a fucking disaster. But what the Democrats
Does anybody
are doing,
remember the Cylindra scandal? Anybody?
Oh God!
$535 million.
Yeah. Wait. Anyway, so here's where I'm going with this. Right? Is that the Democrats are doing something really smart if it pays off for them. If that becomes solvent, that pays their election bills going forward. They have an entire sector of energy that will not only have voters for them, but will be paying their checks to go and run for office. That is one of the smartest fucking things I've seen in political science in the last 30 goddamn years. They just have to make it work.
Evil, but
well, that's politics,
sure.
dude. And that like actually, there's the part where I appreciate you being an anarchist. No, really. Okay, this is kind of the part is that's what government fucking does. But one, it's an investment. Two, if it actually pays off and the green energy becomes more viable or becomes viable, it will be worthwhile for our society to have it, which is why I believe in democracy. Sometimes we have investments that fuck up and don't work right. Sometimes we do. I will accept that trade. I accept the trade of macroeconomics. Okay, there was another thing in there, but don't worry about it.
One more thing, Tiberius and Nacho, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I have to go. Got an emergency text.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's fine. I was about to interrupt and tell everybody we got about like 10 more minutes left because we went over anyway. So
Yeah,
which I
it's
knew
like
we probably would.
5
but-
a.m. for me, so yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm like, if we want to do wrapping up, I can give a quick closing statement, but then I gotta bounce.
Yeah, we can stick with the 2 to 3 minutes and let everybody finish the points that we're gonna make.
Let
and then we'll
Dylan go
right
ahead.
into closing.
I know, Nacho, this is your show, but let Dylan go ahead and give his closing statement, and then let's just, if we need to wrap anything up after that, but I think closing statement is probably good at this time.
Yeah, is that what everybody wants to do? We want to go ahead and go into closing statement.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm
Cool.
okay. It's late.
Seems like a general consensus. All right, yeah, go ahead. So go ahead, Dylan, and kick it off.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just give my closing statement. I'm a very big fan of this style of, I guess it would be like somewhat of a Keynesian style effect on the economy, considering we, invest more to hopefully get some type of output. Generally speaking, the trends show that these types of things lift people out of poverty. However, because the country's so much in debt, we need to definitely work on solving that first. I'm not opposed to selling Amtrak to private investors like these two were talking about earlier. I think that might be a good idea, considering Amtrak has relatively little usage. But I mean, like compared to what it should be at for the American public, and it's not making a profit. Fun chat, fun being here as usual. Nacho, love it. Keep up the good work. You know how it is. I'm happy to be on here whenever you guys need me. And with that, I'm gonna head out. So good night, y'all.
Night,
Thanks
bro.
for coming by, man. Appreciate you.
Yep. See you guys.
All right, let's go ahead and just send it over to Scott then.
Yeah, so I mean, we didn't get to really talk about the bill that much, unfortunately, or the debt. There's a lot of concerning things with the debt, and I think the most important thing, I guess, if I would go through everything, is that CBO before this bill and before COVID bills came through said that we were going to be $112 trillion in debt by 2051 because of Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The defense spending cuts that people always talk about is only 10% of our spending. Discretionary spending is 13%, and the remaining 77% is mandatory spending. We have to fix these programs, and a lot of this talk about the debt one way or the other is kind of bullshit if we don't fix those those things. But again, spending trillions of dollars and other things that are supposedly going to pay off is kind of part of the problem as well. I want to talk about the fact that maybe just a bit of a black pill, and I'm sorry to people, but people keep talking about like, oh, well, what if this green energy pays off, yada, yada, yada. If the Democrats cared about spending our money in a quote responsible way, right? Because obviously I don't agree with it at all, but spending our money in a responsible way towards green energy, they'd be investing in things like nuclear salt, thorium salt nuclear reactors, right? They would be investing in geothermals where we can use geothermals, right? They would be investing in things that actually work, but they're not investing in things that work. Why are they not investing in things that work? Because they have friends in high places. You leftists might call it the capitalist class, right? Or the bourgeoisie, right? But the fact of the matter is that the government is using this money to get their friends rich, who in turn get them elected. And that's part of all of this government waste, fraud, and abuse. Again, not a whole lot more to say. I mean, there's a lot more to say on that, so I'm trying to figure out what else to say, so I'll just leave it with this. Clearly, I did something right because I got a Marxist to agree to take something that is nationalized and sell it to private corporations as a means of paying off the national debt. So, like, clearly he's a fucking libertarian now, and he's swung all the way over to right side economics, and I guess I'll take that W.
Okay. Leftist Al, go ahead.
Yeah, I think generally infrastructure spending is pretty pog. I think it can encourage a lot of it can help us maintain structures that are very important for society, roads, bridges, public transportation, et cetera. But I definitely think that we should focus more on public transportation. We should focus more on getting more infrastructure in place to facilitate people, using public transportation rather than their vehicles. And I think generally that the infrastructure bill, while it was neutered from what it originally was, will probably have a positive impact on America as a whole.
All right. Chad Logic, go ahead.
Hey, it seems like a lot of people have read this. Fair play, I'm built different. I prefer to not read things and just have broad, inaccurate, perspectives on things. That's the best way to do it, I think. And the leftist way, in fact. But no, in all seriousness, I think that there's some good points made here. I think the point of the unions is really good. Look, at the end of the day, I think that my perspective, strong working class organisation is important. I think so much orgs get associated with the Democrats, and that kind of sucks. I want to see a different movement, not associated to the Dems, that's got some balls, and that's it.
Bring back the Wobblies.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. CTV, go ahead. Take it away.
Well, if we're talking about bring back the Wobblies, we need to make sure that we go to SO_Wobbly, right? Username on Twitch, and that's how we get back to the So Wobblies, right? So, moderator, let's make sure that we get an exclamation point So Wobblies in the chat.
Wobbly's based.
Wobbly is based, right? So, from there, we have had a lot of heated, right? And I feel like good conversation, even though Tiberius got a little sensitive. But you know what? That's allowed every once in a while. Everybody's allowed their sensitivity. The fact of the matter is that infrastructure, while can be a good idea from time to time, we are not at a point in our country where we need to be spending this kind of money on the types of things that they want to be spending it on. And if anything, and frankly, Tiberius, I think you made the point whenever you pointed out the specific interstates that you pointed out, and then Fabian pointed out pork barrel spending, right? That like there's like the almost rules for thee but not for me. If it benefits me, then it's okay, but if it doesn't benefit me, then it's not okay. And like that's where philosophical inconsistencies get pointed out. So I frankly don't feel like that the infrastructure bill is going to be everything that the Democrats think that it's going to be. I think it's an attempt to try to put a Band-Aid on the fact that Biden botched the whole fucking Afghanistan pullout. He's fucking up things consistently on the southern border. We still consistently have a huge fucking problem there. And there's just no reason at all for me to consider anything that's coming out of the Democrat Party. And from that, it's just like, how the fuck do I ever, and I do in fact mean ever, right? And I'm just one fucking vote, right? I'm just one vote, but how do I take anything that the Democrat Party is putting forward seriously? There's no fucking way, right? So at the end of the day, if I'm forced, and frankly, I am forced into a two-party system, the only way that I can look at this thing is that, like, let me take a real look at the Republican side of things and see what they're offering, because the Libertarian Party, while on the ballot in all 50 states, has not made a real go of themselves as far as making bringing forth a real fucking candidate. So that's where I land at the issues on the end of the day. And I am happy to have received the invitation to tonight. And I hope that everyone, regardless of how you felt during the debate, has appreciated my presence while here. So, because I've appreciated all of yours. I've appreciated all yours.
Yes, and thanks to CTV and to Leftist Owl and also Dylan Blay for stepping in, because we had some call-outs last minute. So go ahead and wrap this up, Tiberius.
Yeah, so there's a lot that I have to say about this one, so I'm going to promote myself a little bit, and I'll give wrap-up statements. If you're interested in my full thoughts, 30-minute video just on my own YouTube channel that you can check out, where I just break this down. What's in the infrastructure bill, my own thoughts on it, where the politics are, that whole thing. And this whole week has been content where I'm talking about all the interstates that can be funded because of this project now. I-9 in California, I-11 in Nevada, Arizona, the I-49 project, the I-14 project, the I-57 project, the I-69 project. These are all on board, and some of them are actually going to get funded, and we're going to see one of the biggest build-outs in highways since the Federal Highway Administration Act back in '56 that got us the interstates. I'm super excited for this. Okay, here's the point. This was a win for Americans. Yeah, I know we can bitch about certain types of spending, and I'm 100% behind Scott that I hate the spending that people want to do. However, this is not things that I largely disagree with. I can talk about the EVs. I think it's too early for that. But as far as getting our roads and bridges fixed and built, 100% win for America. And yes, we need to work on our spending, but this is not it. Infrastructure, we absolutely want to spend on. We need to go after these dumb programs like Social Security and food stamps that actually hurt people in the long run, not help people. And so this is why you can find out why I'm nobody's friend in Twitch politics. I'm the guy that wants highways and pre-K through post-grad education and socialized healthcare, as they call it, in exchange for Social Security and food stamps. Yeah, apparently I'm all alone in the wind. I'm a weirdo. But if you're interested in that kind of idea and that philosophy that kind of brings that there, definitely check me out, Tiberius D, on Twitch and YouTube. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for being here. We're doing this every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Thank you guys all for showing up. And I forgot to tell everybody.
Wait a minute, are we doing shout-outs?
I was about to say, I forgot to tell everybody to plug themselves, so I was going to go ahead and plug you guys. Follow CTV at Twitch, at Critically Thinking Veteran on Twitter.
I'll go first.
Fabian Scott Liberty, I think. I was just going to shout everybody out.
Fabian
I'm trying to hop off of here. Fabian Liberty, also, I'm pretty sure. Are you on Twitch and Twitter as well?
I'm on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube, but my YouTube is like pet project videos from time to time.
There you go. And then Leftist Owl is the same thing. Twitch and Twitter, I think, is the exact same username. And then Chud Logic, of course. So make sure you follow all these people, and most importantly, follow the Sprouticus on Twitter and on Twitch as well too. So.
I just want to say this right quick. First things first, Chud Logic.
Yes, my friend.
I know it is fucking 5:30 or 5:29 in the morning for you, brother.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh,
I realize. No, I noticed. No, serious,
Okay,
right?
okay.
Showing up. At 5 o'clock in the fucking morning, right? Starting at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning for a conservative panel is no fucking small feat. And I want, as the conservative main boss, right? I want to thank you from the bottom of my fucking heart for showing up, bro, because I've appreciated your fucking arguments tonight.
Thank you. It's enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, and for leftist Al showing up, I don't know where you're at in the world, but you look Californian.
No, I'm near Dylan.
Okay, so he's on the East Coast, so he's same time as me, so fuck him, right? So and and Tiberius D, who is definitely further fucking east than me, fuck you too, because it's like 11:30 where you're at, so you're fucking golden. And Fabian, where are you at again?
I'm in Virginia.
That's right. It doesn't fucking matter because it's obvious you're in America, and the East Coast is the standard. So fuck you.
True. Actually, true.
I'm in
Okay.
Virginia too, baby.
All right. Well,
So
there you
I love
go.
everybody. www.twitch.tv/critically thinking of veteran.
And nice to meet you, Chud Logic.
every
Yeah, you
Wednesday,
too.
the
Pleasure.
American Octagon, Wednesday at 9 p.m. All right. Love you guys. Thanks for
All
showing
right.
up.
Thanks. Have a good one, everyone.
See you,
Bye-bye.
Nacho.
See you
See ya.
guys. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, man.